Tonight we drift into a journey through time, a gentle step onto cobbled streets and into smoky taverns, the kind of places that have been sleeping in our collective memory for centuries. Dim your lights, let the hush of night wrap around you, and settle under your blanket as though it were a cloak spun of starlight. This is a tale told not with haste, but with a rhythm as soft as the hum of a lute by the fire. And as we wander through these curious stories, if this calm journey helps you unwind, feel free to like, maybe even subscribe, but only if it feels right, never rushed. For now, breathe deep, let your shoulders sink into the bed, and come with me into a day in the life of someone you may never have imagined. Oh, and while you're here, let me know, where in the world are you watching from, and what time is it there? The sky beyond the shutters is lightening now, the faint grey of dawn giving way to a softer blue. From the street below comes the shuffle of feet, the groan of cartwheels, the bray of a donkey still unhappy with its burden. The town is stirring, stretching itself awake just as I do in this narrow room. I step outside for a breath of air, the door creaking behind me. The cobblestones are damp with mist, the air sharp, smelling of smoke from early hearths and of earth still wet from last night's rain. A woman nearby empties a bucket into the gutter, water splashing against stone. She nods to me, neither friendly nor cold, simply acknowledging another soul awake too early. At the corner, the baker's shutters open with a bang. Already he's been at his ovens for hours, and the scent of warm bread rolls across the street like a tide. People gather quickly, coins in hand, eager for the first loaves. I join them, slipping a coin across the counter for a small rye loaf, its crust dark, its heat seeping into my palms. I tear it apart as I walk, the steam rising, the taste dense and earthy. Each bite fills the belly, quiets the hollow space left from yesterday. The market grows louder as stalls are set. A man spreads cloth dyed in faded hues. Another arranges apples in a pyramid, their red skins catching the weak light. A fishmonger's voice rings out sharp as the smell of his catch. Chickens squawk from a cage, feathers drifting into the air as if reluctant to remain. I linger by a brazier where chestnuts roast. Their shells crackle, smoke rising fragrant and sweet. The seller tips a handful into my palms, the warmth seeping into cold fingers. I bite one, the nut inside soft, almost creamy, a hint of sweetness on the tongue. It reminds me of autumn nights, of fires in the square, of music that drifts like smoke. The taste is simple, humble, but it comforts. Children run past, their laughter ringing, their shoes slapping the stones. One clutches a rag doll, another rolls a hoop, a third carries nothing but joy. A dog trots after them, wagging its tail, barking once before darting toward a butcher's stall. The butcher shoos it away, muttering, but his smile betrays no true anger. The church bell tolls, deep and resonant, carrying over rooftops. Some cross themselves, others ignore it, their business too urgent for prayer. For me, the bell is a marker of time, a reminder that the day moves on whether I will it or not. By midday, the market is crowded. Voices overlap, merchants shout, buyers haggle, children cry, laughter bursts, and through it all the smell of food hangs heavy, meat roasting, bread fresh, honey cakes glistening in the sun. I buy one of the cakes, sticky with golden sweetness, soft beneath the bite. The honey clings to my fingers, glues itself to my lips. It is indulgence, small and fleeting but worth the coin. Clients sometimes find me even here, their words low, their glances furtive. A man in a merchant's cloak pauses too long, his eyes lingering, his smile cautious. He speaks softly, arranges a meeting later, slips a coin into my hand as if passing alms. I tuck it into my purse without comment, returning my attention to the cake. Business will come, but for now, the market is mine. In the afternoon, clouds gather. The air cools, the light dims, and soon rain begins to fall. Gentle at first, then harder. Stalls are covered with cloth. Buyers scatter, puddles bloom between stones. I take shelter beneath the tavern's eaves, the wood above dripping steadily. The smell of wet wool rises around me, strong as others crowd in. We stand shoulder to shoulder, strangers bound for a time by rain. When it eases, I step inside the tavern. The air is warm, thick with smoke and ale. Voices rise in laughter. Dice clatter across tables, mugs slam down. I find a bench, order a trencher of pottage, barley thickened with carrots and a scrap of pork bone. It is hot, filling, steam rising in curls. I eat slowly, savouring the softness of the grains, the comfort of warmth after rain. A minstrel plays in the corner, his lute's notes gentle at first, then brighter. The tune carries through the room, weaving with laughter, with shouts, with the hum of conversation. Some sing along, their voices rough but merry. Others clap, mugs lifted high. I watch, listening, letting the sounds wash over me. The tavern is not quiet, not soothing in the way the fire's crackle is, but it has its own comfort, a reminder that even in weariness there is laughter. Even in hunger there is bread. Even in shadow there is song. As evening deepens, work calls again. Coins change hands, words are whispered, glances exchanged. Some seek company only in talk, others in touch, others in silence. Each encounter is different, each a thread in the fabric of this life. Some threads are coarse, some fine, but together they weave the pattern. By the time the candles burn low, by the time voices falter into snores, my body is heavy, my mind weary. I step back into the night, the rain cleared, the stars sharp above. The streets are quieter now, the air cool, damp stone beneath my feet. Home waits, a narrow room, a straw mattress, a wool blanket. I undress slowly, slip beneath the rough cloth, close my eyes. The sounds of the day linger faintly. The bell, the laughter, the crackle of chestnuts, the strum of lute strings. They blur, soften, fade. And so the day ends, as it always does, not with grandeur but with small comforts, fleeting joys, steady rhythms. A day lived in shadows, yet filled with life all the same. The rooster crows again before the sun even touches the rooftops. I stir, my body stiff from the straw mattress, my blanket bunched at my feet. The air is cool, almost damp, and the shutters rattle faintly as the morning breeze slips through the cracks. The smell of smoke and yesterday's ale lingers in the room, clinging to the walls, but beneath it there is another scent, the faint tang of clay and water. In the corner sits a jug, wide at the base, narrowing at the neck. Its surface is rough, the clay unglazed, cool to the touch. The jug has waited through the night, filled from the well the evening before. This is my basin, my fountain, my bath. I pull myself up, stretching my limbs heavy. The floor is cold beneath my feet, stone worn smooth by years of use. I take the jug in both hands and pour. The water flows into the wooden bowl below, splashing sharply, echoing in the stillness. The sound alone wakes me more than the rooster's cry. I dip my hands, the water biting cold, and press it to my face. The chill races across my skin, sharp, shocking. It drips down my neck, soaking the collar of my shift. I gasp quietly, the cold stealing my breath. For a moment my eyes sting, my skin prickles, my whole body shivers. And then, slowly it passes, leaving behind a clean sharpness, a clarity that no soft bed could give. There is no soap as you would know it, no perfumed wash. Sometimes a scrap of lye soap, harsh and biting, but more often just water. I cup it in my palms, let it run down my arms, across my shoulders. I scrub gently at my face, my neck, the lines of dirt that gather. The water feels like new life, even if it is brief. Have you ever thought about how much we rely on water, not just to drink, but to feel human? Here, a simple jug is the difference between waking in fog and waking with a mind sharpened like steel. The jug is heavy, but I lift it again, tilting it over my hair. The water pours, cold rivers running down my scalp, soaking strands dripping into the bowl. My hair clings damp against my face, heavy, but I smile despite the shock. The cold drives away sleep, drives away weariness, leaves only a strange kind of brightness. I wrap a cloth around my head, squeezing the water out, twisting the strands until they no longer drip. I tie the cloth at my neck, a simple knot, hair bound beneath. It will dry slowly through the day, but for now it is neat, contained. The room feels different after washing. The air is no warmer, the straw no softer, but my skin tingles, my thoughts feel clearer. I glance at the jug, now half empty, the water inside still and quiet once more. Later I will carry it back to the well, fill it again, the rope creaking as I pull, the bucket splashing, the weight heavy against my arms. A chore, yes, but also a ritual. I dress, pulling on my woolen skirt, lacing my bodice, tying the cloth at my waist. My shoes are worn, the leather softened, the soles patched more than once. I smooth the fabric with my hands, more for habit than vanity. Appearance matters in my work, even if only a little. Clean skin, neat hair, a dress that is patched but tidy. These things can make a difference. Outside, the street is waking. Voices rise, feet shuffle, carts creak, animals call. The smell of bread drifts stronger now, the baker's oven working furiously. The sound of the church bell rolls over the rooftops, deep and resonant, marking the hour. I step into the morning, my body awake, my skin tingling, my mind sharp. The clay jug sits empty now, but its work is done. It has carried me from sleep into day, from fog into clarity. And as I walk toward the market, toward the sounds and smells of the town, I think of how small things shape us. A jug of water, a splash on the face, a shiver down the spine. These are the beginnings of life each morning. The morning stretches further into day, and with it the sense of freshness fades. Skin dries, hair clings damp beneath its cloth, and the air grows heavier with the smells of town. Still, I carry the memory of that cold water, the way it startled me into wakefulness, the way it seemed to rinse away the night. I pass through the square, watching others at their own wash. Children scoop water from buckets, splashing one another until scolded by mothers. A man wipes his face with a rag dipped in the well, sighing loudly as if the water itself has scoured his weariness. Even the horses drink eagerly from troughs, noses deep, water dripping from their muzzles as they lift them again. All of us, human and beast alike, gather around water as though it were fire, necessary for every rhythm of life. At the well, women lower buckets, the ropes creaking, the splash echoing from below. They lift them hand over hand, muscles straining, the wood damp with effort. Some carry two at once, balanced on poles across shoulders, their steps slow but steady. The water sloshes, dark patches spreading across skirts when it spills. They laugh, complain, share gossip in voices that rise above the splash and creak. I wait my turn, the line long, my empty jug tucked beneath my arm. When I reach the edge, I lower the bucket carefully, listening to the rope groan, feeling the tug as it hits water. I haul it up, my arms aching, the weight heavy. I pour slowly, the splash echoing as the jug fills. The sound is satisfying, a promise that the evening will bring its own moment of cleansing again. With jug filled, I wander to the baker's stall. He wipes flour from his brow with the back of his arm, his loaves piled high. The smell of rye and barley is thick, warm, comforting. I buy a small loaf, its crust crisp, its interior soft. I break it apart, dipping pieces into a cup of watered ale. Together they soften in my mouth, earthy and sour, yet strangely satisfying. Nearby, a woman sells soft cheese from a wooden tub, pale and fresh. I buy a slice, spreading it across the bread. The taste is tangy, sharp, pairing well with the grain. It feels like a small feast, though in truth it is only bread, cheese and ale. Still, it fills me, quiets the hunger that rises after washing. Have you ever noticed how food tastes different after you've washed? The same bread feels fresher, the same ale sharper, the same cheese more alive. Clean skin, clear mind, hungry belly, it changes everything. Washing is not just for the body, it is for the senses too, for how the world feels when it touches you. The market hums as the day deepens. Sellers call, children laugh, dogs bark, donkeys bray. The sounds overlap, weaving together into a song of daily life. I move slowly, letting the rhythm carry me. At a stall, a man sells honey drops, small lumps of boiled honey hardened into candy. I take one, letting it melt on my tongue, the sweetness sharp and golden. It clings to my teeth, lingers long after. The water from the jug this morning has left my mouth ready for such sweetness, as though cleansing prepared me for indulgence. By afternoon the air grows warmer. The sun breaks through clouds, lighting the square, catching the glint of water in buckets and basins. The smell of fish drifts heavy from the stalls, mingling with smoke from fires, the tang of leather from tanners nearby. It is not pleasant, Yet it is life, and after washing I find I can endure it more easily, as though the freshness of morning still lingers faintly in me. I sit on a step at the edge of the square, watching people move. A girl carries a jug balanced on her head, walking with grace, the water barely rippling. A boy chases a dog, splashing through a puddle left from yesterday's rain. Two men argue over price, voices loud, arms waving, faces red. All of them, in one way or another, have touched water today. It binds us, though we seldom think of it. Evening comes slowly, the sky turning gold, then deepening. I carry the jug home, heavy against my hip, its weight making me lean. My arms ache, my back stiffens, yet I know the relief it will bring. In the small room, I set it down with care. I pour into the bowl, listening to the splash, watching ripples fade. The water glints in the candlelight, cool and still. I dip my hands again, splash my face once more. The chill is sharp, shocking even after a day of labour, but it soothes too, calming heat, quieting mind. I sit by the fire, letting the warmth dry my skin. The crackle of wood blends with the drip of water from my hair. My body feels tired but clean, my mind heavy but soothed. Washing has marked the day, beginning and end, first light and last. I lie down at last, the blanket rough but welcome. The jug rests in the corner, half full, waiting for tomorrow. Its presence is steady, a reminder that each day begins and ends with water, with the ritual of cleansing. Outside, the street's quiet, the town sighs into sleep. I close my eyes, still feeling the chill of water on my skin, still hearing the splash in the bowl. And so the day ends as it began, shaped by a simple jug, by the flow of water, by the clarity it brings. The first light of dawn filters through the shutters, thin as a knife's edge, slicing across the floorboards. My body stirs before my mind does, heavy with sleep, reluctant to rise. Yet the day does not wait, and neither does the work. I sit up slowly, wrapping my blanket around my shoulders. The air is cool, sharp enough to make me shiver. On the stool at the foot of the bed lies my clothing, neatly folded as best I could manage in last night's tiredness. Every piece is worn, patched, softened by years of use, yet each serves its purpose. First, the shift. A simple linen garment, plain, thin, its fabric coarse against the skin. I pull it over my head, the cloth falling loose around my body. It is not beautiful, but it is the layer that touches me closest, the one that bears the most washing, the most wear. Linen scratches, yes, but it breathes too, and in a life where comfort is rare, that small mercy matters. Over the shift comes the kirtle, wool dyed in what was once a bright hue, now faded to something softer, gentler. I thread the laces, tugging them tight across my middle. The fabric hugs me close, shaping where I cannot afford the luxury of fashion. Each tug of the cord reminds me, appearance is part of the trade. Not finery, no. My clients do not expect silks or jewels, but neatness, tidiness, the effort to present myself, that matters. The skirts fall heavy, brushing against my ankles. The wool holds the smell of smoke, of nights near the hearth, of rain caught in the weave. Still, I smooth it down with both hands, as if by doing so I smooth myself as well. Next, the bodice, stiffened with extra layers, laced snug. It shapes the figure, not extravagantly, but enough. When I catch a glimpse of myself in a shard of polished metal, I see someone who looks ready for the world, if not elegant, then at least presentable. On colder days I add a woolen cloak, edges frayed but warm. On warmer days only a shawl draped over shoulders, knotted loosely at the front. Today the air still bites, so I pull the cloak around me, its weight a comfort. For my hair I unwrap the damp cloth from last night's washing. Strands fall heavy, darker with moisture, curling slightly at the ends. I comb them with fingers, tugging through knots, twisting the mass into a braid. I wrap a linen kerchief over it, tying it firmly. Loose hair is frowned upon, too wild, too suggestive. Better to seem neat, modest even, at least until the moment calls for otherwise. My shoes are last. Leather, cracked, patched more than once, soles thin. I slide my feet into them, the fit familiar, worn to my shape. They creak as I stand, the sound small but steady, a reminder of all the streets they've carried me through. Now dressed, I feel different. No longer the weary figure curled beneath blankets, but someone shaped for the day's work. Clothing is more than cloth. It is armor. It tells the world who I am, or at least who I must be. I sit for a moment, smoothing the skirts again, tying the cloak tighter, adjusting the kerchief until it sits just so. It is not vanity that drives this, but survival. Clients notice. Townsfolk notice. Even the women I share streets with notice. To look unkempt is to invite scorn, to risk being passed by. Still, I smile faintly. There is a kind of humour in how much effort goes into making old clothes look decent. Like polishing a chipped cup or sweeping a dirt floor, it will never be fine, but it can be respectable. From outside comes the sound of carts rolling, hooves clattering, voices rising as the market wakes. My belly growls, reminding me that breakfast waits somewhere. Bread, perhaps, or pottage left from last night. But first comes the ritual of dressing, the layering of cloth, the shaping of self. And so I rise, gather my cloak, step to the door. The latch clicks, the wood swings, and the day greets me, its air cool, its light pale, its sounds already growing. To be dressed is not only to be clothed, it is to step into the role, to wear the part, to walk among others not as bare skin, but as a figure the world will recognize. And with each layer, each knot, each lace, I carry not just fabric, but the weight of what the day may bring. The market square hums with sound as I step into the morning, my cloak brushing against my skirt, my shoes scuffing the stones. The air is brisk, carrying the scent of bread newly baked, mingling with the less pleasant odours of livestock refuse and too many people pressed together. Yet dressed as I am, I feel a kind of shield between myself and the world, as if the wool and linen carry not only warmth but also a layer of distance. Women bustle past me, their aprons stained from early work, kerchiefs tied tight, baskets swinging at their sides. Some nod politely, some look away. Men call out, urging passers-by toward their stalls, their voices competing, overlapping. A butcher waves a cleaver in rhythm with his shouts. A fishmonger splashes water over his catch to keep it glistening. Their sleeves rolled, their shirts marked with stains that no washing could remove. They too are dressed for their labour. It strikes me how clothing is more than habit. It marks the rhythm of who we are and what we do. The priest's robe, the baker's flour-dusted tunic, the merchant's fine doublet, the beggar's rags, all tell a story before a word is spoken, and mine, patched though it may be, tells its story too. Perhaps not loudly, perhaps not proudly, but clearly enough to those who know how to read it. I pass by a stall selling ribbons, bright colours hanging in the morning light. Red, blue, green, each one catching the eye. The merchant leans towards me, his voice soft, coaxing. "For the hair, mistress? Little colour to please the eye?" I smile faintly but shake my head. Ribbons are a luxury, and though I know how they could draw attention, my purse is too thin for such things. Still, I touch one briefly, feeling its smooth weave between my fingers, imagining how it might look woven into my braid. Little flash, little softness. Then I let it go, and the cloth falls back among its companions. At another stall, a woman sells pins, small bits of metal hammered into shape. These I consider more seriously. Pins are useful, practical. They hold kerchiefs, fasten cloaks, mend hems in moments of need. I select one, its head shaped like a simple flower, and hand over a coin. The metal is cool against my palm as I tuck it into my pouch, a small addition to my armour. By midday the sun has risen high, warming the stones beneath my feet. My cloak grows heavy, the wool trapping heat. I slip it from my shoulders, folding it across my arm. Beneath, my bodice and kirtle cling more tightly now, the fabric warmed by the day carrying the faint smell of sweat. Yet still I walk upright, my clothing neat, my kerchief tied firm. Presentation matters, even when the heat presses down. A group of men laugh nearby, their eyes sweeping over me and others like me. Their clothing tells me who they are. Traders, perhaps, or journeymen with coin in their pockets. Their boots are sturdy, their cloaks better cut, their belts clasped with bronze. They notice more than faces. They notice clothing too. A patched dress speaks of poverty, but a clean patched dress speaks of care, of effort. I let them look, but I do not linger. Better to move steadily, to let curiosity rise rather than to invite it too openly. As evening draws near, the market thins. Sellers pack their wares, voices grow softer, the smells shift from bread and fish to smoke and tallow. I pull my cloak around me again, the cool air returning as the sun sinks. The pin I bought earlier catches a faint glint from the fading light as I fasten it at my shoulder. Such a small thing, yet it gives me comfort. Back at my room, I shed the layers slowly. Cloak first, heavy with the day's dust. Then the bodice, laces loosened, my ribs expanding freely at last. The kirtle slides down, the wool falling away. The shift clings to my skin, damp but light. Each layer removed feels like a sigh, a release from the role I've played under the sun's gaze. I hang the clothes over a chair, smoothing them again despite the wrinkles. Tomorrow they will serve once more, their threads carrying me into another day. I fold the cloak, lay the kerchief neatly atop it, set the pin beside them. Even in tiredness I prepare, because tomorrow, as today, I must rise, must dress, must step again into the world clothed not just in fabric, but in the semblance of who I must be. The fire crackles low, shadows stretching long across the room. I sit near it, shift loose around me, hair unbound, braid undone. My body feels lighter now, but also exposed. It is a strange balance, to be comforted by shedding clothes, yet also to feel the vulnerability beneath. Still, I close my eyes, let the warmth soothe me, the day's labour melting away. The garments rest silently in their place, waiting. They are no silks, no velvets, no riches, but they are mine, and with them, each morning I build myself anew. And so the chapter of dressing does not end with laces tied or cloaks clasped, but with their careful laying aside, ready to begin again with dawn's first light. The morning air still carries a bite as I step into the narrow alley, bread tucked into my palm, a small wedge of cheese wrapped in cloth. The square is crowded and loud, but here, between tall stone walls and crooked timber frames, the world grows quieter. The alleyway is not beautiful. It smells faintly of damp earth, old straw, and yesterday's refuse. But it offers privacy, a corner of calm where one can sit and eat without too many eyes watching. I settle on a step, the stone cool beneath me, the sounds of clattering hooves and market cries muffled. The bread is coarse, rye mixed with barley, its crust hard enough to scrape a fingertip. I break it apart, steam long gone from the loaf, but the heart still soft. A wedge of cheese follows, pale and crumbly, its tang sharp on the tongue. Together they are simple but filling. A cat slinks by, tail high, nose twitching at the scent of cheese. I pinch off a small piece and toss it toward her. She pounces, gnawing quickly, eyes darting as though someone might steal it from her jaws. For a moment I laugh quietly, amused at how alike we are. Each of us crouched in an alley, eating in haste, watching to see who might come near. The bread tastes of smoke as though the baker's oven shared the flavour of every loaf it has ever held. The cheese carries the faint musk of the goat it came from, earthy and stubborn. And yet, sitting here, the mix feels comforting. Hunger softens judgment. I sip from a small flask of watered ale, cool and thin, a taste of grain and wood. Water alone is rare in town. Safer to drink ale, even weak, than to risk the sickness that comes from wells too close to waste. The liquid warms my chest, steadies me. I lean back against the wall, cloak wrapped tighter, letting the food sit heavy in my belly. From beyond the alley comes laughter, loud and sudden, the kind of laughter that belongs to men already drinking though the day has only begun. Their boots scrape stone, their words tumble into songs half remembered. I stay in the shadows, quiet, letting them pass without seeing me. Eating alone here is safer than sharing space in the tavern, where coins vanish too quickly and eyes linger too long. A boy runs past barefoot, carrying a bundle of sticks on his back. He glances at me, curious, but does not stop. I wonder if he too has had his breakfast yet. or if his work must be done first. In this city, the order of things is not always food before labour, but labour before food. Hunger can wait, tasks cannot. The stone step presses into me, hard, grounding. The alley holds me, its damp smell, its muffled quiet, its shadows that stretch like cloaks. I chew slowly, letting each bite linger, because once the bread is gone, the morning's meal is finished and the next will not come until coins are earned. Some say that breakfast sets the tone of the day. If so, mine is humble, steady, unremarkable, and perhaps that is enough. Not every day begins with feasts. Most begin with a crust and a wedge, eaten in an alleyway, with a cat for company and the hum of the town just beyond. As I finish, I wrap the last scrap of cheese carefully, tucking it back into cloth for later. Waste nothing, that is the rule. A crumb may serve when hunger sharpens again. I dust crumbs from my skirt, rise and stretch. The day waits, work waits, and with bread and cheese in my belly, I feel ready to step back into the noise. And yet, before I leave, I pause once more. I listen to the soft drip of water from a roof, the faint purr of the cat now licking her paws, the echo of voices rising beyond. For a brief moment, the alley feels almost like a chapel, humble, narrow, but filled with its own kind of quiet holiness. Then I step out, cloak pulled tight, ready for whatever comes. By the time the bread and cheese have settled in my stomach, the alley has shifted. The sun climbs higher, casting long fingers of light that stretch across the cobbles. Dust motes drift in the beams, turning the air golden for a moment before the breeze stirs them away. I linger, not because the food is unfinished, but because the stillness is rare. The city outside is a creature of endless sound. Carts rumbling, bells ringing, vendors shouting. But here in this crooked passage, the noise feels far enough away to let me breathe. A pair of washerwomen pass at the alley's far end, baskets balanced on their hips, their skirts damp from river spray. Their voices carry laughter, the kind that comes when people find joy even in the ache of work. One of them glances my way, eyes catching the pin at my cloak, the neatness of my kerchief. She says nothing, only nods, and I return it. There is no malice there, only a moment's acknowledgement, one woman to another, both doing what must be done. I pull the last crumb of bread from the cloth, turning it over in my fingers. It is small, barely enough to matter, but I place it on the ground for the cat who has returned, her eyes fixed on me with patient hunger. She takes it quickly, tail flicking once as if in thanks, before darting into the shadows. Even she, I think, wastes nothing. From nearby, the smell of roasting meat drifts in, a tavern preparing its midday meal. The aroma makes my stomach stir again, though I know my purse cannot stretch so far today. Hunger is curious that way. It never admits defeat, only waits for another chance. I smile at the thought, amused that even in poverty the nose and the belly dream of feasts. I sip once more from the flask, the ale now warmer, flatter, but still enough to quench. The flask itself is dented, the leather cracked, but it has served me well. Like my cloak, my shoes, my kirtle, it is a companion shaped by years, carrying traces of every day it has seen. As the alley cools in shadow again, I stand. My body is steadier now, my mind clearer. A simple meal can do that. Bread, cheese, ale, nothing more, yet enough to shift the world from blurred to sharp. Hunger dulls everything, sight, thought, patience. Food, however humble, sharpens again. I gather the cloth, fold it, slip it back into my pouch. The alley gives me one last gift, a moment of quiet, before I step once more into the swell of town life. My shoes scrape stone, my cloak flares slightly in the breeze, the sound of bells from the church tower marks the hour. The market will grow busier now, the taverns louder, the work more demanding. But for a little while I had my corner, my bread, my cheese, my cat, and perhaps that is all a morning needs. A small meal in a narrow alleyway, turning hunger into strength, silence into readiness. As I walk away, I glance once over my shoulder. The alley sits empty now, only a patch of sunlight warming the stone step where I had been. Soon, someone else will sit there. A boy with his bundle, a man with his ale, a woman with her basket. Each will claim the space, each will leave it. The alley keeps no names, only moments. And so, with breakfast done, I carry myself forward, the day waiting, the hours long, the path winding. My belly is not full, but it is satisfied. My spirit is not soaring, but it is steady. And that, in this life, is enough. The market square greets me like a tide. Noisy, restless, impossible to resist. As soon as I step from the narrow street into the open space, the sound washes over me. Bells from a church tower mix with the bray of donkeys, the shouts of vendors, and the murmur of dozens of voices speaking at once. The air itself feels thicker here, alive with the smell of roasting meat, spilled ale, herbs, fish, and the musk of too many bodies pressed close. The square is no grand court. It is a patchwork of uneven stones, muddy puddles, and hastily built stalls. Yet to the town it is everything. Its stomach, its gossiping tongue, its heartbeat. Those who want to sell, to buy, to eat, to argue, to meet. Everyone comes here sooner or later. I pull my cloak tighter, not because of the cold, but because eyes linger too long in a crowd. Men stand in knots drinking from cups, their laughter too loud. Women weave between stalls with baskets on their arms, their children darting like sparrows, quick and sharp-eyed. Dogs slink underfoot, searching for scraps. At the first stall I pass, a butcher leans over a block stained dark from years of labour. He swings his cleaver with practised rhythm, the sound of blade on wood sharp as a drum beat. Behind him, sides of pork and beef hang from hooks, flies circling. The smell is rich, metallic, heavy enough to taste even without buying. He notices me watching, his grin wide, voice booming. "For you, mistress, a cut so tender it melts like butter." His words follow me even as I move away, swallowed by the next stall's cries. Here, a fishmonger splashes water over scales to keep them glistening. The air reeks of salt and river mud. His voice rises above the din. Fresh from the river, caught at dawn, still wriggling in the nets. Children tug at their mother's sleeves, some delighted, some wrinkling their noses at the smell. A few paces further, baskets of apples, pears and onions rise in neat piles. Their colours catch the eye, reds deep as wine, greens sharp as spring, yellows warm as candlelight. The seller, a woman with sleeves rolled, slaps her palm against a barrel. "Sweet and crisp, straight from the orchard," she calls. I finger one of the apples, smooth under my thumb, but set it down again. Today, bread and cheese were enough. The market square is not just a place to buy food, it is a stage where lives are displayed. A pair of friars walk through, their robes brushing the dirt, heads bowed as they speak softly to each other. A merchant in a fine doublet strides confidently, his purse jingling with each step. Two beggars sit against a wall, palms open, their voices cracked as they plead for alms. Crossing the square requires more than walking, it requires weaving, sidestepping children, pausing for carts, ducking under hanging cloths. My shoes splash through puddles, my cloak brushes against baskets, the sounds close in tight. At the square's centre stands a fountain, stone worn smooth from countless hands and hooves. The water runs steadily, clear but tasting faintly of iron. Women gather here, filling jugs and gossiping, their laughter ringing brighter than any bell. I pause for a moment, sipping from my flask, listening as their words slip around me. Bits of news, bits of rumour, who married, who quarrelled, who was seen after dark. The fountain does not only quench thirst, it carries secrets too. A sudden shout rises, a man accusing another of short measure at a stall. Voices grow heated, hands fly into the air, a small crowd gathers. I slip past quickly, for quarrels in the market can swell like storms, sudden and fierce. Better to move on, cloak pulled close, head lowered. Step by step, the other side of the square draws nearer. Beyond lies quieter streets, smaller houses, less noise, yet the market clings to me even as I leave. The smell of meat and fish, the echo of voices, the press of bodies. Crossing the square is never only walking, it is entering the town's heart, being swallowed by it, and finding your way out again. Each time I emerge a little different, cloaked not just in fabric, but in the memory of sights, sounds, smells too thick to shake away. As I press further across the market, the noise shifts around me like waves, rising, falling, pulling me into different currents. At one corner, a minstrel strums a lute, his voice cracked but steady as he sings of knights and ladies, his hat on the ground waiting for coins. Children gather near him, some swaying with the music, others giggling as they mimic his voice. For a moment, even the vendors pause to listen, their hands stilling mid-gesture, the square softening under the thread of song. But the spell breaks quickly. A donkey brays, loud and impatient, pulling a cart piled high with cabbages. The driver curses, tugging at the reins, while a boy darts forward to snatch one rolling cabbage before it hits the mud. Laughter erupts around them, the song forgotten. Such is the market. Moments of beauty swallowed by chaos, then reborn again in the next breath. Near another stall, bolts of cloth hang like banners, deep blues, earthy browns, a rare streak of crimson that glows like fire in the sunlight. A woman runs her fingers along the weave, murmuring about weddings, while her husband frowns at the price. The merchant smiles slyly, adjusting the cloth so it catches the light better, as though the sun itself has agreed to raise the value. I pause, tempted to touch, but resist. Fine fabric is a dream for someone like me, a vision better left to the eye than the purse. At the far edge of the square, the smell changes again. Spices, sharp, warm, exotic. A merchant stirs them with a wooden spoon, the colours dazzling. Saffron gold, cinnamon brown, pepper black. His stall draws the curious, though few can afford his wares. He knows this, and so he sells dreams instead, letting customers inhale, close their eyes, imagine feasts beyond their means. I breathe in once as I pass, and the air fills with faraway places I will never see. The ground beneath my shoes turns slick where fishmongers have spilled water, where butchers have let fat drip. Dogs lap eagerly at the mess, their tails wagging, tongues red with grease. I step carefully, though my cloak still brushes the damp stones. Later, when the square empties, the dirt will be raked, the scraps swept. But for now, the market lives in its own filth and glory, a thing both foul and vital. I glance back once, halfway across, and the square looks like a tapestry. Stalls like patches of colour, people like stitches, threads of sound weaving it all together. If I were to describe it to someone far away, I might say it is messy, loud, even unpleasant. And yet there is something in it that stirs me, something that makes the town feel alive in a way no quiet street could. Finally, I reach the opposite side. The noise lessens as soon as I step into a narrower lane. It is like stepping out of the sea, water still in my ears, but the ground beneath me dry again. My shoulders relax, though the market lingers in the mind, the smells, the cries, the feel of coins hidden tight in purses guarded with suspicious fingers. I adjust my cloak, take one more sip from the flask, and keep walking. Behind me, the square roars on, uncaring that I have left. Tomorrow I will cross it again, and the same songs, the same quarrels, the same cries of vendors will rise like they always do. But each time I pass, I carry a piece of it with me, a reminder that the market is not only a place to buy, it is a mirror of the town itself, full of hunger, hope, and noise that never quite fades. And as I step further down the street, away from the press of bodies and voices, I breathe a little deeper. The market square has been crossed, and with it, another piece of the day has begun to shift. The lanes grow quieter as I move farther from the market, until a different sound begins to rise above the shuffle of feet and the creak of wagons. It is deep, resonant, and steady. The church bells. Noon approaches, and their toll rolls out across the town like waves from a distant shore. The sound does not rush, it lingers, each note swelling in the chest before fading slowly into the air. Even those who do not look up seem to feel it, their heads pausing mid-turn, their voices softening for a moment, as though the bell has touched them invisibly. The great church stands at the heart of town, its spire piercing the sky. From the outside, it is not only stone, but a statement. Here is power. Here is eternity. Here is something greater than any market stall or tavern. The bells themselves hang heavy in the tower, swung by ropes and men whose arms ache with the labour, yet whose work remains unseen. The world hears the sound, but few ever see the strain behind it. I find myself slowing as the notes continue. The first toll strikes the air with authority. The second, softer in its echo, overlaps. Soon the pattern builds, a rhythm older than I am, older than my mother, older than many who will ever stand in this town. The bells have been tolling for centuries, marking hours long after those who built them turned to dust. Around me the town shifts. Merchants pause to wipe sweat from their brows. Children stop chasing each other, gazes turning upward as if the sky itself is singing. A dog howls, its voice clumsy but earnest, joining the chorus. Somewhere, a cart halts in its track as the driver makes the sign of the cross, murmuring a prayer. I lean against a wall, letting the stone press into my back. The sound carries through me, slow and deep, and I close my eyes for a moment. The bells do not only tell the time, they remind. They remind of the church's reach, of the order imposed on the hours of the day, of the life that is meant to be measured not by bread or coin, but by devotion. And yet, for me, the sound is both comfort and burden. Comfort because its steadiness never falters. Burden because with every toll it reminds me of where I stand in this world, on its edges, not within its embrace. A woman like me is not welcome in the pews, not whispered about kindly by the priest. The bell rings for the faithful, yes, but it rings for me too, though in a different way. As the 12th toll fades, a hush falls, brief and fragile. The air feels different for a heartbeat, as though the town itself has held its breath. Then, slowly, life stirs again. Stalls reopen their noise, feet resume their rhythm, children squeal once more. The hour is marked, and so the day continues. I push away from the wall, my steps carrying me closer to the church square. Pilgrims gather there, their clothes dusty from long roads, their faces drawn with both fatigue and hope. Some clutch relics, others coins to offer. A friar walks among them, murmuring blessings. The air smells of incense drifting faintly from the open doors, mingling with the sharper tang of horse dung nearby. The bells may have finished, but their echo lingers, hanging in the mind long after the last note has died. Even as I walk, I can still hear it, as if my ears refuse to let go. I move closer to the square before the church, where the crowd thickens. The great doors stand open, the heavy wood carved with saints and angels, their edges worn smooth by countless hands that have pushed them open. Light spills from inside, though not the sharp brightness of the sun. It is a softer glow, filtered through coloured glass. The stained windows catch my eye even from outside. Blues like the depth of a river, reds like fresh berries, golds that seem to shimmer when the sun strikes them just so. They tell stories most cannot read in books. Stories of creation, of miracles, of saints who lived and died in devotion. Children tug at their mothers' sleeves, pointing upward in awe. Even grown men fall silent for a moment when the light passes through the glass and lays coloured shapes upon the stones. I do not step inside. The threshold is not forbidden to me by law, but by something unspoken, something heavier than iron. A woman in my trade entering the church would draw whispers, perhaps worse. The bells may have called me here, but they did not open the doors. Instead, I linger at the edge, blending into the hum of pilgrims and townsfolk. Vendors have set up small tables near the church steps. Rosaries, wax candles, ribbons blessed by priests. The irony is not lost on me. The market stretches its fingers even into this square, as if no space can exist without barter. A boy waves a candle at me, urging me to buy, his eyes wide with the hope of a coin. I shake my head gently, offering only a smile. His disappointment is quick, but he turns to the next passerby, already calling out his pitch again. From within the church, the low chant of voices rises, monks or priests at their prayers. The sound is a drone, steady and unbroken, like a river flowing under the bell's memory. Some of the pilgrims kneel on the stones outside, their lips moving in quiet imitation, their hands clasped. Dust clings to their garments, yet their eyes shine with something I do not share. Faith, perhaps, or the hope that faith will bring them something more than this world has given. I watch for a while longer. The sun now stands high, the heat pressing down, the square shifting under its weight. Women fan themselves with kerchiefs, Children grow restless, dogs pant in the shade. Noon is not only a time on the bell, it is a turning point. The morning has passed, the day leans now toward its second half. For me, it is a reminder. Work waits, in one form or another. The bells that called others to prayer call me back to the streets, the alleys, the places where coins may be found. The church holds its worshippers in shadow and song, but I must step into the sun again, where life is harsher, less forgiving, yet mine all the same. I linger one last moment, letting the breeze carry the faint smell of incense to me. It mixes with the odours of the town, sweat, horses, dust, but stands out all the same, a whisper of another world. Then, with a turn of my cloak, I walk away. The sound of bells has faded, the chant grows distant, but their memory clings to the air like the echo of a dream. And so, with noon marked and the day half spent, I return to my path, the hours ahead stretching wide and uncertain. The bells will toll again, at evening, at night, and tomorrow. They always do. For now, their song has ended, and mine must continue. There comes a moment, after the dust of the streets has clung to my skin and the weight of the market's noise still hums in my ears, when the thought of water is like a prayer. Not the quick splash from a jug, not the trickle of a fountain, but real immersion, warmth, steam, and the slow easing of muscles made tight by the day. That is when the bathhouse calls. The bathhouse in this town is no palace, but to those who enter, it feels as close as one might come. Its walls are plain from the outside, a heavy wooden door with iron hinges and windows small to keep the heat in. Yet when I step inside, the world changes. The first thing I notice is the warmth. It wraps itself around me instantly, a damp embrace rising from the steam. The air smells faintly of soap, herbs, and smoke from the fires that heat the great cauldrons of water. A low hum of voices drifts through the room, soft conversations, laughter, the occasional splash. I hand a small coin to the attendant, his hands damp from carrying buckets. He nods, barely looking at me, already turning to serve the next guest. Coins may open the door, but once inside, all are equal under the steam. The main chamber is lined with benches, the walls darkened with years of moisture. Candles flicker in iron sconces, their flames bending in the draught of heated air. Pools of water, shallow and deep, stretch across the floor, some cooler, some nearly hot enough to sting. People sit or float, their voices echoing against the stone, the steam curling around their faces until they are little more than shadows. I slip out of my cloak, setting it carefully aside. The first touch of water on my feet sends a shiver through me, not from cold but from the sudden release of tension. I ease myself into the pool slowly, the warmth climbing my legs, my waist, until it surrounds me completely. The sensation is both startling and soothing, like stepping into a memory half forgotten. Around me the voices continue. A pair of merchants compare prices, their tones sharper than the water is soft. A group of women laugh together, splashing, their cheeks flushed with heat and mirth. In a corner an old man leans against the stone, eyes closed, his breathing deep and steady, as if the bath has carried him back into youth. I sink lower, letting the water rise to my shoulders, steam clinging to my hair. The world outside fades, the bells, the market, the wary glances. Here, in the bathhouse, time stretches, slower, softer. My body feels lighter, though the water presses gently on every side. I close my eyes and let my ears fill with the sound. The drip of condensation falling from the ceiling, the hiss of water poured from a bucket, the murmur of conversations blending into one long note. It is not silence, but it is peace of another kind, woven from small sounds instead of none. When I open my eyes again, the steam has thickened, curling like smoke in the air, blurring the outlines of bodies, of walls, even of myself when I glance down. For a moment, I imagine the bathhouse as a kind of dream. No edges, no certainty, only warmth and shapes half seen. Perhaps that is why people come here not only to wash but to talk, to scheme, to whisper things they would not dare say in the clear light of day. As I lean back, I wonder, How many secrets has this bathhouse heard? How many trades agreed upon? How many confessions spilled? How many stories exchanged? All carried away in the steam like breath on a cold morning. I smile faintly at the thought, then sink deeper, the water closing over my shoulders, the day's weight peeling away at last. The warmth seeps deeper into me as I linger, each breath carrying steam into my lungs, leaving them heavy and yet strangely clean. The bathhouse has a way of loosening not just the knots in muscles, but the knots in thought. Slowly, the chatter of the market, the clamour of bells, even the sharp memory of coins clinking too lightly in my purse, all of it begins to soften, as though wrapped in cloth and set aside. A woman nearby begins to hum, her voice low and lilting. The tune has no words, at least none I can catch, but it winds through the air like smoke curling upward. Others listen, some closing their eyes, and for a moment the bathhouse feels like a chapel of steam. The sound is gentle enough to soothe, but strong enough to carry through the room, filling the gaps where conversation has quieted. On the far side, a boy carries in more hot water, his arms straining with the weight of the pail. He empties it with a hiss into one of the hotter pools, the steam rising in thick clouds. The surface trembles, rippling outward, and those seated nearby laugh at the sudden burst of heat. I watch him hurry back out, his bare feet slapping against the damp stones, and I wonder if he ever sneaks a moment for himself, or if service to others is all he knows of the baths. I let my own body sink lower until only my face remains above the surface. The heat soaks into my hair, my neck, my chest. There is a peculiar comfort in surrendering like this, in allowing the water to hold what the day has pressed down. Some part of me wishes I could stay until evening, even longer, living in this cloud where the world outside cannot reach. But the bathhouse is not only a refuge, it is also a stage. Conversations drift to me in fragments. Talk of a lord's temper, whispers of a merchant's debt, plans for a wedding feast, schemes for profit and wages. The walls have heard more politics than the hall of the mayor, I suspect, though disguised in casual tones, softened by steam and warmth. Even here, where bodies are stripped bare, people wear masks of words. I close my eyes again and let the murmur fade. The dripping ceiling, the steady lap of water, the sigh of someone easing sore limbs, these sounds weave a kind of lullaby. The mind drifts in such moments, floating much as the body floats. My thoughts wander to the faces I will see tonight, the coins I must hope for, the glances that weigh me heavier than any cloak. Yet here, for now, those concerns feel further away, like stars only half visible in daylight. Eventually I rise from the water, my skin flushed from heat. Droplets cling to me as I step carefully onto the stones. I wrap myself in a rough linen cloth, the cool air brushing against damp skin, a shock after the embrace of the pool. Around me, others are leaving too, their faces softened, their movements slower, as though each carries with them a piece of the bath's calm. Near the exit, herbs hang drying from rafters, lavender, rosemary, sage. Their fragrance mixes with the steam, sweet and sharp, the last touch before one returns to the dust of the streets. I pause to breathe it in, wishing I could bottle the scent, carry it with me into the darker hours. Stepping back into the daylight, the sun feels harsher than before, the noise of the town sudden and sharp. Yet beneath it I still carry the bathhouse warmth, a lingering softness that will fade only slowly. My clothes cling less uncomfortably, my shoulders feel lighter, and though nothing has changed in the world, something has shifted in me. The bathhouse has done what it always does, reminded me that even in a life bound to coins and glances, there are moments of stillness, of steam, of warmth that can wash away the weight, if only for an hour. And as I walk down the lane once more, cloak settled about me, I think of the next place the day will carry me, and how the bathhouse's calm might follow like a faint hum, just enough to soften the edges of what comes next. The bathhouse warmth still lingers in my skin as I step into the tavern, though the air here carries a very different heat, one thick with smoke, roasting meat, and the murmur of voices that swell and dip like waves in a restless sea. The door closes behind me with a groan, and for a moment the dimness makes the room seem like dusk, though outside the sun still rides high. Taverns are their own world. Here, time bends not by the toll of bells, but by the rise and fall of mugs, by the filling and emptying of trenchers, by laughter loud enough to rattle the rafters, a place where men forget debts, where travellers trade tales, and where the tired may find food without questions asked. I find a corner bench, its wood scarred with old knife marks and stained with the spills of years. From here, I can watch without being watched too closely. The tavern is not new to me. I know its smells, its sounds, its faces, but each visit carries something fresh. The cook's ladle clatters in the pot, sending up steam rich with the scent of barley, onions, and salted pork. My stomach stirs, reminding me of its own emptiness. Meals in my life come not by the clock, but by chance. When coins allow, when work has been kind, when a generous hand leaves something more than expected. Today the coins from the morning's whispers are enough, and so I wait. The serving girl arrives, her hair tied back with a strip of cloth, her face damp from the heat of the hearth. She sets before me a wooden bowl heavy with stew. The broth is thick, grains swollen, pieces of carrot soft enough to melt against the tongue. A hunk of dark bread follows, its crust hard but perfect for soaking. I take the first spoonful slowly. The stew burns hot at the edges of my mouth, yet settles warm in the belly, steadying me after the steam of the bath. Each bite carries not luxury but satisfaction, the kind of food that fills more than it flatters. Bread dipped in broth softens, carrying flavour deeper, richer. I tear it with my teeth, chewing slowly, letting the taste linger. Around me, the tavern lives its own rhythm. At one table, two men argue about wool prices, their voices sharp enough to cut the air. At another, dice clatter against wood, followed by laughter and groans as coins change hands. A minstrel plucks at a lute near the fire, his tune lost against the noise, yet weaving a thin thread of music into the room. The smell of roasting fowl reaches me. Geese turning on a spit, their fat dripping into the fire, sending sparks upward. Somewhere ale sloshes as mugs are slammed in cheer or frustration. A dog sneaks under tables, its eyes wide, waiting for scraps to fall. I eat slowly, savouring each mouthful, for though the food is humble, it feels like a gift. A reminder that even in the press of noise and heat, there can be small comforts. Stew thick with grain, bread softened in broth, the hum of life surrounding me like a cloak. As I set my spoon down, I glance toward the door. More patrons arrive, dust on their boots, weariness in their shoulders. The tavern takes them in, as it takes us all, offering food and noise in place of silence and hunger. And as I sit back, bowl nearly empty, I wonder, not for the first time, how many stories have been told within these walls? How many lives have brushed shoulders here? Strangers for an hour and then gone again, leaving only the echo of their voices in the rafters. The tavern grows louder as the afternoon deepens, voices rising like the tide, each wave overlapping the last. My bowl now sits empty before me, only a trace of broth clinging to the wood. Hunger is eased, replaced by that pleasant heaviness that follows a meal well earned. Yet I linger, not ready to step back into the sunlit streets just yet. The serving girl passes again, this time with a jug of ale. Her arm tilts with practiced ease, filling mugs without spilling a drop. I catch her eye, raise 2 fingers, and soon a cup is set before me. The drink foams at the top, amber beneath, carrying the earthy scent of grain. My first sip is sharp, bitter at the tongue's edge, but it softens as it goes down, warming my chest like a small fire. Ale is not luxury either, it is common as bread, but it has its own comfort. It loosens the knots in thought, makes the noise of the tavern blur into a softer hum. Some drink to forget, some to celebrate, some simply because it is safer than the water drawn from wells. For me, in this moment, it is a pause, a place between hunger and the next task of the day. At the long table near the fire, dice clatter again, followed by a cheer. Coins exchange hands quickly, some won, some lost, but the game continues without pause. A boy with soot-darkened cheeks drags in more firewood, stacking it by the hearth. Sparks leap when the logs fall into place, lighting the faces of those seated closest. The minstrel's lute grows braver now, his tune clearer as a few listen with interest. It is no great song, no ballad of kings or saints, but something lighter, a melody fit for a market lane. A couple hum along, tapping fingers against mugs in rough rhythm. The music fills the spaces between voices, and for a brief while the tavern feels less like a jumble and more like a single sprawling song. I sip again, watching. The tavern is not just food and drink, it is a mirror of the town itself. Merchants, travellers, labourers, even a few faces I know too well from quieter alleys, each finds their place here. The tavern swallows differences and spits out something else, a gathering, messy and noisy but shared. My own trade is not blind to such places. Sometimes a glance here, a word there, leads to an evening's work. Coins slipped into my palm as the candles burn lower. But for now, I remain still, content to watch. Not every meal need end in transaction. Sometimes a meal is simply a meal, and an ale simply an ale. The dog still prowls underfoot, rewarded now with a scrap of bone. He gnaws it noisily, tail wagging, oblivious to the clamour above. I envy him in a way. His joys are simple, unbothered by coin, by station, by shame. Bread, bone, warmth, and he asks for no more. At last I drain the last of my cup, setting it down with a soft thud. The noise of the tavern presses closer, yet it no longer feels sharp, only a background hum. My body is heavier now, content, ready to step back into the street with something more than emptiness in my belly. The serving girl sweeps past again, her laughter trailing after her as someone calls a joke I cannot hear. The fire crackles, mugs slam, voices rise, and I stand, drawing my cloak about me once more. The tavern does not notice me leaving, as it does not notice most who come and go. It is a place that swallows faces and gives back only noise, warmth, and memory. Stepping into the daylight again, I blink against the brightness. The world outside feels sharper, the dust, the sun, the distant toll of a cartwheel against cobblestone. But inside me lingers the stew's warmth, the ale's fire, the tavern's hum. Small things, perhaps, but they are what carry a body through the long stretch of afternoon. And so, with stomach filled and thoughts softened, I turn down the road once more, letting the day carry me forward toward whatever waits beyond the next corner. The afternoon light slants lower now, long shadows stretching across the crooked streets of the town. After the warmth of the tavern, the air outside feels sharper, carrying with it the dust of hooves and the faint scent of fish from the market stalls. I pull my cloak a little tighter, not so much for cold as for the eyes that follow too easily when one walks alone in this part of town. The cobblestones beneath my feet are uneven, and more than once I nearly trip, the hem of my gown brushing dampness where a bucket has spilled or a horse has relieved itself. Such is the perfume of the alleys, less sweet than roses, yet no less real. There is a certain rhythm to moving through the alleys, one I have come to know well. Step lightly, keep to the edge, ears open for the sound of approach. In these narrow lanes, sound carries strangely. Boots against stone, the rattle of a cartwheel, a cough muffled by a wall. Sometimes it is safer to pause, press back into the shadows and wait for the noise to pass rather than risk being seen. Tonight is not yet heavy with danger, but still I tread with care. It is here, in the half-forgotten corners of town, that whispers live. News moves faster in alleys than in courts or churches. Lovers' quarrels, merchants' cheats, guards' tempers, priests' indulgences, all pass through these spaces like smoke drifting between stones. One only needs to listen, and I, by nature of my trade, have long learned to listen. From the far end of the alley, two figures lean close, their voices low. I cannot hear their words, but the shape of their talk is familiar. Quick, secretive, the kind of exchange carried out with eyes darting side to side. Perhaps a debt being confessed or a tryst arranged, or something darker still. I do not linger too openly, for watching has its own risks. Better to pass as though I notice nothing, though in truth I take in everything. The tilt of a hand, the nervous laugh, the way one man tugs at his sleeve as though hiding a scar or a bruise. I step into another lane, This one narrower still, the walls leaning as though they might kiss above my head. Here the air smells of damp wool and stale beer. From a cracked window I hear the sharp cry of a baby followed by a mother's weary hush. Life spills out of these walls in fragments, each household a little world of its own, pressed tight against the next. And then comes the voice I had half expected. "You walk quick today," it says, low, just behind me. I turn, slow, careful not to startle. A man stands there, not tall but wrapped in a cloak darker than mine. His smile is thin, the sort that hides more than it shows. We have spoken before, though never in daylight, and never in any place but alleys. "What news?" I ask, because that is always the way of it. I do not ask his name, nor he mine, though both of us know them well enough. In this dance, names are like coins, useful, but dangerous to show too openly. He shrugs, eyes glinting. "Merchants grow fat while beggars starve. A guard found dead 2 streets from here, though the church says nothing, and a noble son spends too much time in the kitchens, if you understand me." His words spill like crumbs, small pieces, but enough to hint at the loaf behind them. I nod, half listening, half watching the way his hand stays close to the fold of his cloak. Information is never free, and payment takes many forms, sometimes coin, sometimes company, sometimes nothing more than the assurance that one day when he asks I will listen again. The alley tightens around us, shadows stretching long as the sun dips further. The whisperer leans closer. His breath smells faintly of onions and ale. "Be careful tonight," he says, softer now. A patrol walks quicker than usual, and the captain's purse feels lighter than he likes. Easiest coin to make is from those with no shield, no station. You know who I mean. I do know. Women like me. Faces that guards call familiar, not for our names, but for our profession. Easy targets when fines need filling, when coins must be scraped from the poor to line the purses of the powerful. I give him a look that is part thanks, part weary knowledge. He only shrugs again, as though the warning costs him nothing, and melts back into the alley, swallowed by shadows. That is the way of whisperers. They appear, they vanish, and their words linger like smoke in the mind. I walk on, heart a little quicker now, feet softer against the stones. The alley seems changed, though nothing in truth has shifted. The same walls, the same puddles, the same voices drifting through cracks and windows. Yet the whisper coils in my mind, making each corner seem sharper, each shadow deeper. A group of children scatter ahead of me, their laughter bouncing off the stones. One drops a ragged doll, snatches it up again and disappears into the maze. Their play seems louder than any guard's boots, yet somehow safer. For all the harshness of the alleys, life persists here too. Children running, women singing while they scrub laundry, men calling jokes across windowsills. Whispers may carry fear, but they carry laughter as well, and hope, and secrets of softer kind. At last I step out of the narrow lanes into a slightly wider street, where the air feels easier to breathe. Behind me, the alleys twist on, a web of stone and shadow, carrying their whispers without end. Ahead, the lamps are being lit one by one, small flames fighting against the dusk. I pause, looking back once, listening. A door slams, a dog barks, a voice curses, another laughs. The life of the alleys goes on, thick with whispers that never rest. I wrap my cloak tighter and turn forward, letting the road carry me toward evening, the warning still tucked like a hidden coin in my thoughts. The day, with all its noise and dust, begins to loosen its grip as the sun slips lower, dragging shadows longer across the cobblestones. There is a hush that creeps into the streets when the sky softens from gold to grey. Merchants gather their last coins, sweeping stray beans and grains back into their sacks. Children are called in with sharp voices, their laughter echoing as they vanish into doorways. A few dogs still roam, sniffing at barrels, tails wagging for scraps, but even they seem slower, as though the town itself exhales. And then it comes, the sound that shapes every evening, no matter who you are or where you stand. The bell. The great iron tongue strikes, rolling out across roofs and alleys, across inns and chapels, bouncing against stone until it settles in the chest of everyone who hears it. Deep, low, steady, one after another, each note like a heartbeat for the whole town. The bell does not rush. It moves at its own solemn pace, each strike demanding that you pause, that you listen, that you feel. For some, it is the call to prayer, a summons to bend knee and bow head in the dim glow of candles. For others, it is the signal to shutter shops, to bar doors, to count coins and tuck them away. For many like me, it is a reminder of the hours left, hours where work shifts from the daylight's labour to the darker trades of the night. I stand at the corner of a lane, letting the sound roll through me. The bell is older than I am, older than the faces I pass each day. Cast in a time when kings wore different crowns, it has outlived plagues, fires and floods. No matter what else changes, the bell remains steady, a constant voice that marks the rhythm of life. As it tolls, I notice the change around me. A man hurries faster, clutching his cloak tighter. A woman gathers her children, tucking them in close as they cross the square. 2 apprentices laugh nervously, still carrying their master's tools, knowing they should have returned them before the strike. Even the horses at the well snort and shift, unsettled by the sound. For me, the bell is less a command than a reminder. Night is when the brothel breathes its loudest, when coins pass quickest, when secrets are traded for touches and whispers. The bell tells me that time is near, that the streets will darken, that the lamps will flicker, that the faces who hid themselves all day will come walking boldly in the shadows. And yet there is comfort too. The bell is like a boundary, a line drawn across the day. Whatever has happened, good or bad, hunger or laughter, belongs to the hours behind. The bell insists that a new part begins, whether one is ready or not. As its final notes fade, they linger in the stone itself, as though the very walls hum with memory. I take a slow breath, feeling the air cooler now, touched with the dampness of evening. A lantern sparks to life nearby, its flame small but steady. Another follows, and another, until the square begins to glow with little suns of oil and fire. The darkness no longer feels empty. It feels expectant. My stomach tightens, though not with hunger. The hours ahead will demand their own kind of strength. Faces will come, some kind, some cruel, some blurred by drink. Words will be said, some tender, some harsh, some not meant for anyone's ears but mine. The bell has opened the gate and now the night begins to pour through. I start walking again, my shoes clicking softly against stone. Around me the town shifts, markets gone, laughter dimmed, prayers beginning, doors closing, yet behind shutters, candles flicker where lives continue unseen. The bell has stilled, but its echo carries me forward, as if each step falls in rhythm with its heavy, ancient beat. And so I walk, into the evening that waits, the bell's voice still in my bones, reminding me that time does not pause, that night will always come, and with it, the life I have chosen. Or perhaps, the life that chose me. The bell has faded, but its echo remains inside me, like the slow beat of a drum guiding my steps. Evening has settled across the town now. Lanterns flicker to life in crooked rows, the air thick with the mingled scents of smoke, roasted meat, damp stone, and the faint sourness of spilled ale. My path bends back toward the quarter where I spend most nights, a place both familiar and uncertain, filled with faces I know well and others I would rather forget. Preparing for the night is never as simple as pulling on a dress. It is a ritual, one shaped as much by habit as by necessity. Every gesture has meaning, every detail carries weight. Coins are not given freely. They must be coaxed, persuaded, invited. A smile here, a lowered gaze there, a hand brushing lightly against a sleeve. It is a dance, and a dancer must always rehearse before the curtain rises. I step into the doorway of the house where I live and work. The wooden boards creak, the smell of wax and perfume mingles in the air, and the murmur of women's voices floats down from the upper floor. Some laugh, some argue, some hum little songs as they lace gowns. The house feels alive, as though it is stretching awake after sleeping all through the day. My own chamber is small, little more than a room with a narrow bed, a wooden chest, and a cracked mirror that leans against the wall. Yet, it is here that the transformation happens. I set my cloak aside, letting the fabric fall heavy across the chest, and for a moment I see myself not as others will, but as I am. Tired, a little worn, face pale from the long day's wandering. But there is no room for weariness in what comes next. First, the gown. Tonight I choose one of deep red, its hem patched in places but still rich enough to catch the candlelight. The fabric clings, not luxuriously, but with the kind of promise men notice even in dim corners. The laces at the side draw in close, shaping the body, presenting not truth but a version of truth that pleases the eye. I tug them tight, the cords digging faintly into my ribs, a reminder that beauty often comes with a pinch. Next, the hair. I untangle the strands with fingers first, then with a comb carved from bone. It catches often, pulling, but I persist until it falls smoother, glinting where the lantern's flame brushes it. I twist it partly up, pinning with a cheap copper clasp, leaving enough to spill loose over my shoulders. Loose hair, I have learned, carries its own suggestion, wildness, softness, freedom, even if the truth beneath is anything but free. Then, the scent. From the chest I lift a small vial of oil, not rare, but precious enough that I ration it. I dab a drop at my neck, another at the hollow of my wrist. The fragrance rises, spiced, sweet, faintly sharp, masking the sweat of the day and replacing it with something more enticing. In the crowded heat of the tavern, such details often go unnoticed, but when a man leans close, when his breath brushes my ear, the scent can be the difference between coin offered and coin withheld. Finally, the little things. A ribbon at the wrist, a touch of rouge on the lips, a smile practiced in the mirror until it looks effortless. The mirror does not lie. It shows the lines, the fatigue, the shadows under the eyes. But it also shows the illusion I must carry, and illusions are often worth more than truth. From downstairs comes the sound of the door opening, voices greeting, laughter already rising. The night has begun. I slip on my shoes, thin leather, soles worn, but enough to carry me through the hours ahead. As I step toward the stair, I pause once more, glancing at the small wooden cross nailed crooked above the doorframe. Some nights I look at it longer, whispering a prayer half sincere, half habit. Other nights like this one, I only nod to it, as though to say, "Watch me if you will," but I must go. Descending the stairs, I join the others. Their gowns shimmer in candlelight, greens, blues, golds, all patched and mended, but together forming a spectacle designed to dazzle. Their voices overlap in chatter, jokes, gossip, strategies for the evening. One smooths the sleeve of another's gown, another steals a sip of wine, another leans close to the window to watch who approaches. We are not sisters, not truly, but in this work there is a bond, forged not by blood but by survival. The door opens again, and the first customers step inside. Boots scrape the floor, coins jingle faintly in purses, eyes sweep the room, searching. The madam greets them with her practiced warmth, gestures wide, laughter loud, drawing them in like moths to flame. And we, the ones prepared, step forward in turn, each movement deliberate, each glance calculated. The night is ready, and so am I. The ritual complete, the mask in place, I move into the flow of the evening where whispers turn into touches, touches into coins, coins into the clink of survival. The day is gone, the bell has struck, and the work begins. The candles downstairs burn brighter now, their flames restless in the draught that seeps through the cracks of the old wooden walls. Shadows lean long across the floor, stretching like fingers eager to clutch at the boots that enter. The first customers have arrived, as they always do, drawn by the warmth of fire, the scent of wine, and the promise of company that waits behind painted smiles. There is a rhythm to it, this first wave. They come before the taverns grow too noisy, before the streets are truly dark. Men who want to drink, yes, but not drown. Men who want to be seen, but not discovered. They carry themselves with a curious mix of caution and eagerness, like schoolboys sneaking sweets but pretending to be bold. The first through the door tonight is a merchant, plump from both coin and comfort. His cloak is fur-lined, though the fur has thinned in patches, revealing where. He smells faintly of pepper and cloves, a man who has dined well before arriving here, but who seeks a different appetite now. His laugh is too loud for the small room, his hands already brushing crumbs from his doublet, as though to prepare for touch. Behind him shuffle two apprentices, likely from the smithy. Their faces are smudged with ash, and their tunics hang loose as though borrowed from older brothers. They do not look at us directly at first. Their eyes dart, cheeks flush, hands fumble at belts as if the very air of the place overwhelms them. But their coins clink. Small, yes, but real, and so they too will find a place here. And then, the soldier. There is always one. His boots thud heavy against the boards, his hand never far from the hilt at his hip. The scent of leather and steel clings to him, mixed with the sweat of long marches. His gaze sweeps the room with the sharpness of one trained to measure, to judge, to command. Yet when he sits, spreading his legs wide and leaning back, he sighs like any other man, weary, wanting. We move toward them slowly, deliberately, as if by chance, though each step is calculated. The merchant receives the brightest laughter, the apprentices the softest touch, the soldier the longest gaze that dares him to look back. It is a game, one played with careful rules, and each of us knows our part. I approach the merchant first, brushing past his arm as though by accident. His skin is warm, soft from a life of counting rather than carving. He smiles, his teeth yellowed but broad, and asks my name, though I know he will forget it by morning. His words tumble with spice, stories of trade, of ships, of profits. I nod, I laugh. I lean close enough that he believes I am listening, though my mind drifts to the crackle of the fire behind us. The apprentices are drawn in by another of the girls, one who knows how to soften her voice into something like lullaby. They laugh too loudly, their nerves spilling out, their feet knocking against stools as they try to sit steady. She places a hand on one shoulder, and he nearly jumps, though his grin grows wider. Youth is clumsy, but it pays, and the house does not turn coin away. The soldier, though, he watches. He always does. Men like him test the air before committing. He waits until he sees who laughs, who leans, who takes his coin gladly, and then he decides whether to join in or to stand apart. I meet his eyes for a moment, letting the glance linger just long enough to suggest invitation. Then I turn back to the merchant. Let him wonder. Sometimes the wondering is worth more than the taking. The night is still young. These are only the first notes in the long song that will play until dawn. But these first customers set the tone, like sparks that decide whether the fire will burn high or low. Their laughter begins to weave with ours. Their coins begin to change hands. Their presence begins to thicken the air. The brothel has awakened fully now, the day's silence replaced with a hum that grows louder, steadier, insistent. And so, the night's work begins, as it always does, with the first knock of boots, the first clink of coin, the first smile, shaped not by feeling but by necessity. The curtain has risen, and the play goes on. The room grows warmer as the night deepens. The air thickens with heat, the wax of candles dripping slow and golden, the fire in the hearth crackling with sparks that leap and die before they touch the floor. Laughter hums around me like a low song, mingled with the scrape of chairs, the shuffle of boots, the faint sweet slosh of wine being poured again and again into waiting cups. Wine loosens more than tongues. It unties the knots men keep hidden in daylight. After a cup or two, the proud merchant leans in closer, his words spilling easier than his coins. After a jug, the soldier's sharp watchfulness softens, his hand resting on the table rather than the hilt at his side. And the apprentices, flushed from both heat and drink, laugh at nothing at all, as if the world itself has become a jest. But beyond the laughter, the wine invites something deeper. Secrets. It is always this way. Wine wears down walls, and in the shadows of the brothel those walls collapse quickly. Men arrive with stories they have carried too long, burdens heavy on their shoulders. They do not share them with wives or priests or comrades. No, they save them for moments like these, whispered across wooden tables, entrusted to ears they believe will keep them safe. I know better than to ask, but they tell me anyway. Perhaps it is the tilt of my head, the way I pour the cup, the way my hand lingers near theirs. Perhaps it is the illusion of safety, that here, among laughter and perfume, secrets will vanish into the night. The merchant tonight, for instance, leans in so close I can feel the heat of his breath as he confides about a rival across the river. He cheats the scales, he mutters, wine staining his lips. Weights hollowed with lead. I've seen it, but no one dares accuse him. If I had proof... His eyes narrow, and then, as if realizing how much he has said, he drains his cup and laughs too loudly. But the secret lingers in the air, heavier than smoke. The soldier, after his third cup, begins to talk of campaigns past. His voice lowers, roughened by memory. We burned a village once, he says, almost to himself. Orders, they told us. Orders. But the children... He falls silent, his gaze fixed on the dark red pool in his cup. When he speaks again, it is lighter, forced, a jest about the taste of the wine. But his eyes do not lose their shadow. Even the apprentices, young and careless, have secrets. One whispers to the girl beside him about coins hidden beneath a loose stone near the smithy. Don't tell the master, he giggles, though his words slur. He'll take it all. He always does. His friend shoves him, laughing, but the truth has slipped out bare and clumsy like a child in oversized boots. And what do I do with these secrets? I nod. I smile. I let them fall into me like rain into a well. I do not keep them, not truly, but neither do I spill them. They vanish into the depths of memory, blurred with the dozens of others, lost in the fog of nights too similar to count. And yet, some remain, lodged sharp as stones. The soldier's voice, the merchant's narrowed eyes, the apprentice's giggle. They stay because they reveal not just what men do, but who they are beneath the masks they wear. Wine has a way of turning the ordinary into confession, of making strangers into confidants. Perhaps that is why men trust us with their secrets. They believe the night itself will swallow their words. They believe we are part of that night, keepers of shadows who will never step into daylight. And perhaps they are right. The cup's empty and I refill them. The laughter swells, then fades, then swells again. Somewhere upstairs, footsteps creak. Voices lower to whispers. A door closes. Down here, secrets continue to spill, one after another, carried on the dark tide of wine. The fire pops. A candle guttering in the corner sends wax sliding in slow, deliberate rivers. I lean closer to hear the merchant again, my ear nearly brushing his lips, and I wonder, not for the first time, how many truths are spoken in brothels that will never see the light of day, perhaps more than in all the courts and councils combined. And so the night deepens, one confession at a time. The air inside has grown heavy with wine and breath, so when the door swings open, spilling cool night air into the room, it feels like a blessing. Someone out in the courtyard has brought out a lute, its strings bright against the hush of the street. The notes drift in, slow at first, then quicker, tumbling like silver beads across stone. Conversation pauses, even laughter falters, leaning toward the sound. The courtyard is not grand, just a square of uneven cobbles, a well at its heart, a few benches scattered around. But when the music begins, it transforms. The lanterns hung along the eaves sway gently in the breeze, their light trembling across faces that gather one by one to listen. The flames catch on hair, on eyes, on cups raised in lazy rhythm. The courtyard becomes a stage, and all of us, merchant, soldier, apprentice, and harlot alike, become its audience. I step out with the others, the coolness wrapping around my shoulders like a shawl. The night sky above is clear, stars pricked sharp and white against a velvet dark. The lute's melody climbs toward them, as if daring to reach their distant fires. A second instrument joins in, pipes, thin and sweet, weaving through the deeper tones like ivy curling around stone. Music does what words cannot. It softens the merchant's scowl, smoothing the lines of his brow. It lifts the apprentices from their clumsy postures, setting their feet tapping in time. Even the soldier who sat so heavy with shadow before leans back now, his lips pressed into the ghost of a smile. For a moment each man forgets his secrets, his burdens, his place in the world. For a moment they are simply men, listening. The women sway too, gowns catching the flicker of the lanterns. One begins to hum, her voice low, steady, a harmony that melts into the lute. Another claps gently, urging the rhythm on. I too feel the pull, the way the music seems to gather me up, to loosen the weariness in my limbs, to replace it with something lighter. My foot taps without thought. My hands rest against the stone well, fingers drumming in time. And then someone begins to dance. A girl in a gown the colour of sea foam steps forward, twirling so the fabric flares, her laughter ringing as bright as the lute. The apprentices cheer, their claps fumbling but eager. The merchant chuckles, throwing a coin that flashes in the lantern light before landing with a clink against the stones. Others join, one spinning, another stamping in rhythm, the sound echoing across the narrow walls. The courtyard comes alive. Boots strike, skirts swirl, voices lift. The music grows bolder. It is not planned, not rehearsed. It is born in the moment like fire catching dry tinder. Even those who do not dance smile, their eyes bright in the glow. And do I dance? Not tonight. Tonight I watch, the music moving through me, my body swaying gently where I stand. I feel it in my ribs, in the back of my throat, in the air filling my lungs. It is not joy exactly, but something close. A reminder that even here, in this place, with all its shadows, there can be lightness. The song shifts, slower now, softer. The dancer pauses, breathless, hair clinging to her cheeks. The merchant leans forward, clapping once, twice in gratitude. The soldier raises his cup, a salute to music itself. The apprentices sigh, shoulders bumping as they slump against each other, their energy spent. Above us, the stars continue to burn, unmoved by our small celebration. Yet in this courtyard, for this brief moment, the world feels kind. And as the last notes fade, swallowed by night, the courtyard returns to itself. Cobbles, benches. The lanterns sway, the breeze sighs, the house behind us hums again with voices. But the memory of the music lingers, like the warmth of a hand even after it has let go. And I know the night is not yet over. It comes late, always later than one expects. The night feels safe, almost endless, and then a sharp rap against the heavy wooden door. Not frantic, not hurried but measured. The kind of knock that carries authority. The kind of knock that makes every heart in the room pause just for a moment. The watchman. Every town has them. Men who walk the cobbled streets with lanterns and staves, their duty to keep order when most honest folk are asleep. They know where trouble brews, and they know where to find warmth and coin to forget their rounds. They know the brothel well. Too well. The knock sounds again, steady like the heartbeat of the street outside. The laughter inside falters. The apprentices glance at each other nervously, as if caught doing what their masters forbade. The merchant clears his throat, trying to seem unbothered, though his hand twitches toward the purse at his belt. The soldier frowns, his jaw tight, his eyes narrowing. For him, perhaps, this knock feels like a challenge. Our mistress, clever, steady as stone, rises from her place near the hearth. Her skirts sweep the floor as she moves to the door, her steps unhurried, her face calm. She's done this 100 times, perhaps 1,000. With one hand she smooths her hair, with the other she lifts the latch. The door creaks open, lantern light spills in, bright and golden against the softer candle glow inside, and there he stands, the watchman. His cloak is thick, hood drawn back to reveal a face weathered by night winds. His beard is peppered with grey, his eyes small but sharp. In one hand he holds his lantern, its flame shivering in the breeze. In the other, his staff, polished smooth by years of use. Evening, he says, though it is well past evening now. His voice is deep, steady, practiced, a greeting but also a warning. He does not step inside, not yet. The mistress smiles, warm and wide, as if welcoming an old friend. Evening, she echoes, her tone soft, her posture graceful. The words between them are few, but much is exchanged in the silence that follows. Coins, favours, promises. This is not a battle but a negotiation, one that plays out in glances more than words. The merchant shifts in his seat, pretending to be unconcerned. The apprentices whisper too loudly, quickly silenced by a glare from one of the girls. The soldier alone remains steady, though his hand hovers close to his cup, as if weighing whether to rise. The mistress dips her head, murmurs something too low to catch, and slips a coin into the watchman's palm. His fingers close around it with the smoothness of habit. Not greedily. No. Simply matter of fact, like a man taking bread he has earned. He nods once, then steps back, the lantern swinging gently. The door closes, the latch falls, the room exhales. The laughter does not return immediately. It takes time, like embers coaxed back into flame. The apprentices are the first to recover, their whispers tumbling into giggles. The merchant follows, raising his cup in a mock toast, as if to declare the danger past. The soldier only shakes his head, muttering something about bribes and the weakness of law. But even his voice softens after another swallow of wine, and we, those of us who live within these walls, we return to our places, our movements smooth, our smiles practiced. For this is not new. The watchman's knock is part of the rhythm of our nights. It is as constant as the moon's rise, as inevitable as dawn. Yet I wonder sometimes, as I watch the door close on his retreating shadow, what secrets does he carry? How many doors does he knock upon each night? How many coins weigh down his purse by sunrise? And when he returns to his own hearth, does he tell his wife of the warmth he found here? Or does he let silence guard his own secrets, just as we guard those of our customers? The lantern's glow fades down the street. The sound of his boots against the cobbles diminishes, swallowed by the night. Inside, the fire cracks once more, steady, sure, as though nothing had interrupted the flow of the evening. The watchman's knock has passed, leaving only its echo and the reminder that even in the softest shadows the world beyond is always waiting. The night wears on, the fire in the hearth glowing lower, the laughter softer, the wine jugs lighter. Just when it seems the house has settled into its rhythm, the knock comes again. Not the sharp, measured rap of the watchman, but softer, hesitant, almost shy. A pause, then another, as though the knocker is unsure if he should be here at all. Our mistress tilts her head, her eyes narrowing just slightly. She rises once more, smoothing her gown, and goes to the door. The latch lifts, the wood creaks, and the lantern light from outside spills across the threshold. This time, it is not a soldier or a merchant or a townsman we know. It is a pilgrim. He stands there awkwardly, cloaked in a robe that has seen too much rain and too little rest. His sandals are worn, straps fraying. Dust clings to the hem of his garment, and his face is flushed from both cold and travel. Around his neck, a small wooden cross dangles, swinging as his breath comes heavy. In his hand he holds a staff, not polished and proud like the watchman's, but rough-hewn, carried mile after mile, until the wood itself seems weary. "Peace upon this house," he says, his voice hoarse but kind. It is the greeting of one who has walked long roads, of one who believes in blessings more than in walls. The mistress studies him for a heartbeat longer than usual. Pilgrims are not rare in our city, for shrines and relics draw them like bees to flowers, but they do not often stop at our door. And yet, here he stands, eyes lowered, as if ashamed of where his journey has brought him. "Come in," she says at last, her tone gentler than before. And so he enters, blinking against the glow of candles, the scent of spiced wine, the warmth of bodies gathered close. He looks almost out of place, like a crow in a dovecote, and yet there is something steady in the way he carries himself, something that does not bend even as his shoulders sag. The others notice him quickly. The apprentices snicker, nudging each other, whispering about holy men and unholy places. The merchant raises an eyebrow, curiosity sparking in his wine-heavy gaze. The soldier only snorts, muttering into his cup, yet none speak loud enough to break the pilgrim's quiet dignity. He finds a seat at the edge of the room, setting his staff beside him with care. When offered wine, he shakes his head politely. "Water," he says simply, and so water is brought, clear and cool from the well. He drinks it slowly, each sip measured as if it were the finest vintage. And then he begins to speak. Not of judgment, as some might expect, but of roads and rivers, of mountains crossed and villages passed. His words paint pictures brighter than any tapestry, of the chill of dawn on the hillside, of the kindness of strangers offering bread, of the silence of a chapel at dusk, candles flickering like stars trapped in stone. We listen, even those who first scoffed. The apprentices lean closer, caught by the shimmer of travel in his tone. The merchant strokes his beard, perhaps weighing profit in distant markets. The soldier closes his eyes, his jaw softening as he remembers marches of his own. And we, the women of this house, we listen too, though for different reasons. For his words carry not just distance but hope, a reminder that there is a world beyond these walls, wide and waiting. The pilgrim speaks of Santiago, where the bones of saints are said to rest, and of Canterbury, where holy water runs clear. He speaks of Rome, where crowds gather in squares that echo with prayer. He does not boast, he simply tells, and as he tells, I feel the room grow still, each of us caught in the pull of his voice. At last his story winds down. He places his cup upon the table, his hand lingering on the rim, as though anchoring himself there. The road teaches many things, he says softly, patience, hunger, weariness, but most of all it teaches humility. We're all pilgrims, in one way or another. The words settle over the room like dust motes in sunlight, gentle, almost invisible, yet impossible to ignore. Silence follows, not awkward, not heavy, simply silence, as each person folds the words into their own heart. Then, slowly, the sound of the house returns. The merchant clears his throat. The apprentices whisper again. The soldier shifts in his seat. The fire pops, casting sparks. But the pilgrim's presence lingers, like incense after prayer. When he rises to leave, he bows, not low, but respectfully, his hand brushing the small cross at his chest. May your nights be peaceful, he says, and there is no judgment in his tone, only blessing. The door closes behind him, and the room exhales once more. Yet for a moment it feels changed, softer, kinder, as if a little of the pilgrim's road has remained with us, settling into the stones beneath our feet. And perhaps, in the quiet that follows, we all wonder, if only for a heartbeat, what paths our own feet might one day tread. When the men retreat into their cups, or when they slip away one by one into shadowed chambers, the air of the common room shifts. The laughter lowers, the bustle softens, and in the quiet corners the girls gather. That is when our own world begins, one made not of coin or performance, but of whispers, glances, and stories shared like stolen sweets. We sit close, skirts brushing, hair loose from its pins. A comb is passed between hands, smoothing tangles while the fire hums. Someone mends a hem, the needle flashing in candlelight. Another twists ribbons through her hair, humming a tune that clings like honey. And while our hands stay busy, our voices weave the true entertainment of the evening. Gossip. It begins with something small, a sigh, a smirk, a name murmured half in jest. Did you see the way the merchant's eyes followed her all night, one says, her voice lilting with amusement. Another laughs softly. Aye, and his purse followed too, heavy as a bishop's belly. The circle giggles, though the sound is hushed, tucked behind palms. But it does not stop there. Gossip never does. Soon one tale leads to another, tumbling over itself like dice across a tavern table. The soldier's scar, the apprentice's fumbling hands, the watchman's too steady gaze, all become fodder for our words. Not cruel, not entirely, but sharp enough to make us feel for a moment that we hold the power. We speak of each other too, of course. Always. A ribbon hidden in a sleeve, a look exchanged with a stranger, a coin slipped too quickly into a pocket. Secrets are currency here, traded as easily as kisses. And though our tongues may sting, our laughter binds us. For in the end, gossip is less about truth than it is about belonging. Someone mentions the new girl. Always it comes to her, the freshest among us. How she blushes when addressed, how her steps still falter on the stair, how her smile is too easy, too trusting. There is teasing, some sharp, some soft, but beneath it a thread of protectiveness. We all remember our first nights, the uncertainty, the fear. Better she be shaped by our whispers than by a stranger's cruelty. The gossip drifts then, away from the men, away from the work, to things lighter. Hair dyes from the apothecary. Will walnut husks truly make it darker? Which tavern bakes the better honey cakes? Who saw the juggler in the square drop his torches and nearly set his breeches alight? The stories grow sillier, the laughter warmer. One girl mimics the high voice of the baker's wife. Another pretends to swoon like a lady in a ballad. Our circle shakes with quiet mirth, shoulders pressing together as though we might dissolve entirely if we let go. There is always one who tells a story too strange to believe. Tonight it is about a man who swore he had seen a fish with wings in the river. And did it sing to him? Another teases, her eyebrows raised. Nay, comes the reply, but he swore it winked. The laughter that follows fills the room brighter than any candle, and when the mirth fades, something gentler takes its place. The gossip turns toward dreams, as it often does in the softer hours. One girl speaks of wanting her own stall in the market, selling ribbons and combs. Another whispers of a cottage beyond the fields, chickens scratching in the yard. Someone else, quieter still, says only, "I wish for a night without fear." And we all fall silent, because that wish is ours too, though rarely spoken aloud. In those pauses, we are not rivals, not performers, not the painted faces men think they see. We are simply women, sharing our small hopes like crumbs saved in a pocket. The gossip fades into a kind of prayer, unspoken but understood. The fire cracks, the candles sputter low. One by one the girls drift off, some to work, some to rest, some to lie awake staring at the rafters above. The circle loosens, threads unravel, the whispers dissolve into the night. But the warmth lingers, like a shawl draped around shoulders. Tomorrow we will laugh again, sharper, louder. We will share secrets too juicy to keep and tease until our sides ache. But tonight, for a little while, the gossip has been more than talk. It has been our shelter, our comfort, our way of saying to each other, "You are not alone." There are nights when the house hums with noise and laughter, when every room is full and coin clinks like rain against the table. And then there are other nights, quieter ones, when the air holds a different kind of weight, thicker, expectant, as though something hidden is about to surface. It is on such nights that secrets come alive, and footsteps tread softer than usual. It begins not with a knock, nor with a shout, but with a glance across the room that lingers too long, a look exchanged between two people who are meant to be strangers, yet whose eyes betray something else, a promise, a plea, a spark carefully hidden beneath layers of routine. I have seen it before, the way a man lingers at the edge of the firelight, his cup untouched, his posture stiff. He is waiting not for drink, not for music, but for a moment. And I've seen the way one of the girls passes behind him, her hand brushing the back of his chair, too lightly to be noticed by anyone else. She does not pause, but her gaze flickers, and in that flicker an entire story is written. The mistress notices, of course. She notices everything. Her eyes are sharp as a hawk's, though her smile never falters. She allows it sometimes. A secret rendezvous can be useful, keeps a man loyal, keeps him returning. Other times, she will stop it with a single cough, a raised brow, and the spark dies before it catches flame. But when she allows it, the house itself seems to lean in, watching, holding its breath. On this night, she does not stop it. The man is a clerk, I think, his hands soft, ink-stained, his speech careful. He is not young, not old, but carries the look of one who spends more time with parchment than with people. And yet here he is, shifting in his seat, glancing toward the stair as though it calls to him. The girl is clever. She plays her part well, laughing with the others, twirling a ribbon through her fingers, pretending to ignore him entirely. But when the candles burn lower and the noise softens, she slips away. Not upstairs. No, that would be too easy. She moves instead through the side door, the one that leads to the small courtyard where laundry dries by day. A few moments later he follows. He thinks himself unnoticed, but the floorboards creak and the door closes with a sigh that carries through the quiet room. Outside, the air is cool, tinged with the scent of damp stone and night-blooming herbs. The courtyard is small, walled in by brick, the moonlight spilling across the flagstones. It is here, in this hidden pocket of the night, that the two meet. Their voices are low, urgent, though the words are lost to me. I can only guess. Confessions, perhaps, or promises. Maybe he speaks of leaving his ledgers behind, of running away to someplace far beyond these walls. Maybe she tells him of her dreams, her fears, her wish for something more. There is laughter, soft and nervous like the flutter of wings. There is a pause, the kind that hangs heavy before a kiss. Not the practiced kiss of the house, not the coin-born gesture offered nightly, but something rawer, clumsier, filled with both hope and doubt. For a moment the world shrinks to just them, the girl with her ribbon and the man with his ink-stained hands, two souls who believe, if only briefly, that they might find solace in each other. But secrets are fragile things. A shutter creaks above, a shadow shifts. Someone else has seen, though whether it is another girl or a drunk patron or the mistress herself, I cannot tell. Secrets here rarely stay secrets for long. They ripple outward, whispered from mouth to mouth until they return, twisted, to those who birthed them. Still, for this moment they are alone, and in that aloneness they are free. When they return, their faces are carefully composed. He carries himself straighter, as if to prove nothing unusual has passed. She moves with the same grace as always, her ribbon tucked neatly away. No one remarks, no one questions. The house pretends not to notice, and so the night continues as before. But we know, we always know. The house itself keeps such stories tucked into its beams and stones, and though the rendezvous may be secret to the world beyond, within these walls it becomes another thread in the tapestry we weave together. A story half whispered, half imagined, yet always remembered. And I wonder, as the candles burn down and the fire sighs into embers, will they meet again? Or was this single, fragile moment all they were allowed? The night does not answer. It only holds the secret, like so many others, in its endless, patient dark. The house has its share of visitors, night after night. But not all come seeking laughter, wine or comfort. Some arrive with heavier steps, carrying burdens no coin can ease. On this night, the knock at the door is slow, deliberate, each rap echoing against the wooden beams like a heartbeat gone wrong. The mistress answers, as always, her gaze quick to measure the figure standing there. A man, cloaked in dark wool, his satchel heavy at his side. His eyes are tired, not from wine, but from long hours bent over jars and herbs. It is the physician. At once the house grows quieter. The girls know why he comes. He's not called for fevers or coughs, not for scraped knees or bruises. He comes for the troubles we do not speak of loudly, the aches that settle deep, the wounds left by rough hands, the fears that creep in like shadows. The physician sets his satchel on the long table, opening it with practiced care. Inside are small bottles of glass, each holding liquid dark as ink or pale as honey. There are bundles of dried herbs, tied with twine, and packets of powders wrapped in cloth. His tools gleam faintly, cold in the firelight. The girls gather near, some curious, others uneasy. The physician is not cruel, but his presence reminds us of frailty, of the costs hidden beneath painted cheeks and bright laughter. One by one, those who need him step forward. A girl with a rash along her arm, red and angry from the cheap dye she used to tint her gown. He dabs it gently with vinegar, murmuring about cool compresses. Another, pale and trembling, whispers of cramps that will not leave her. He mixes a draught, bitter-smelling, instructing her to drink it with honey. There is more he does not say aloud, but we know. The women of houses like ours often carry burdens heavier than coin purses. Sometimes the burdens leave too soon. Sometimes they linger when they are not wanted at all. For these, the physician's remedies are whispered of, but never spoken outright. A powder slipped into broth, a tincture stirred into ale. Small mercies, dangerous ones, but mercies nonetheless. The mistress watches closely, her arms folded, her expression unreadable. She knows the risk of letting sickness spread in her house, the risk of losing the laughter that draws men to the door. She pays the physician well, and in return he says little beyond what is needed. As he works, he speaks softly, not only of remedies, but of the world beyond. He tells of new herbs arriving from the east, cinnamon and ginger and strange roots said to heal the stomach, He mentions the university physicians, men in long robes who write their knowledge into thick tomes, though few here will ever see such pages. He even jokes gently, comparing one of his foulest tasting syrups to a drink fit only for monks who've forgotten how to smile. The girls laugh, the tension breaking like a snapped thread. When his work is done, he gathers his things slowly, carefully. The satchel closes, the bottles clink softly. He accepts his payment, coins pressed discreetly into his hand, and bows his head. "Take care of yourselves," he says, though his tone is weary, as if he knows too well how little control we have over such matters. After he leaves, the room feels different. The fire still burns, the wine still flows, but a hush lingers. We have been reminded once again that beneath the songs and whispers, beneath the painted lips and silk ribbons, we are flesh, and flesh is fragile. Yet even in that reminder there is a kind of strength. For as the girls return to their places, to their laughter and stories, they carry with them not just the burden of their bodies, but the resilience of surviving another night. And sometimes that resilience itself feels like the truest medicine of all. There is never a night in the house quite like the one when a bard stumbles through the door, lute slung across his back, songs spilling from his lips like water from a cracked jug. And when that bard is drunk, properly, magnificently drunk, the entire house feels it, as though the rafters themselves lean closer to listen. He arrives late, when most men already sit heavy with drink, their laughter slurred. The door bangs open, and in he lurches, hat askew, boots muddied, from some forgotten street. His lute strings jangle with each sway of his step, out of tune yet somehow full of promise. "Ladies, gentlemen, souls of the night," he cries, nearly tripping over the threshold. "I have come to bless you with music, or curse you, depending on your ears." The girls giggle, even the mistress cannot help a thin smile, and at once the air lightens. For a drunk bard is never just a nuisance. He is a spectacle, a whirlwind of sound and folly. He begins with a ballad, though his words twist and tumble over each other. "Oh, fair maiden of something sweet, your eyes are like..." He pauses, squints at one of the girls, then finishes. "Like two onions shining in the moonlight." The room erupts in laughter, the poor girl nearly choking on her wine. "Pearls, you fool!" someone shouts. "Not onions!" But the bard only strums louder, grinning like a child who's gotten away with mischief. His songs wander from love to battles to bawdy tales that would make even a tavern blush. One moment he sings of knights and dragons, his voice soaring with mock grandeur. The next he collapses into a ribald ditty about a miller's wife and her very patient donkey. Each verse grows more outrageous, each rhyme more unlikely, and the drunker he grows, the funnier he becomes, not in spite of his mistakes, but because of them. Between songs he tells stories, half-remembered tales of far-off towns, of noble feasts where he claims to have played, though judging by his boots no noble hall has seen him in months. He speaks of the road, of sleeping under hedges, of stealing apples when his purse runs dry. The girls lean closer, half amused, half enchanted. For even in his rambling there is truth. The life of a bard is free in ways ours is not, and that freedom glimmers like a coin just out of reach. The men join in too, slamming tankards on the table, shouting for their favourite tunes. One demands a war song, another a lullaby, another a jig to make the floorboards shake. The bard obliges all, strumming furiously, his fingers flying through half the notes miss their mark. Still, no one cares. The music is not for perfection, it is for joy, and joy spreads quickly. Soon one of the girls is dancing, skirts swishing, arms raised as though she spins in some grand hall instead of a smoky room. Another claps in rhythm, laughing so hard she can barely keep the beat. Even the mistress allows the scene to unfold, though her eyes remain sharp, weighing coin against chaos. Inevitably, the bard grows tired. His voice cracks, his strumming slows, and he slumps onto a bench, still smiling through the haze of wine. A girl slips him a crust of bread, another tips a little ale into his cup. He thanks them both with exaggerated bows, declaring them angels in disguise, though the wings must be hidden under those gowns. By the end of the night, his lute lies forgotten, strings slack, while he snores softly in the corner. But his presence lingers. For long after he is staggered out into the dawn, his songs remain in the air, replayed in our laughter, in the playful hums of the girls as they climb the stairs. And though the bard himself may never remember this night, the house will. For it is not often that laughter comes so freely, spilling without cost, without fear. It is a gift, rare as a jewel, even if it came wrapped in slurred verses and crooked rhymes. As the embers die down and silence creeps back in, I think to myself, sometimes, even in the heaviest of lives, it takes only a drunken bard to remind us what it means to feel alive. There are nights when the door opens to the usual crowd, traders with jingling purses, farmers eager to forget their toil, soldiers hungry for more than battle. And then there are nights when the air itself shifts, when footsteps on the threshold carry a weight of authority, of privilege. It is on such a night that the nobleman arrives, unexpected as a storm at harvest. He does not knock as others do. The door is pushed open with the easy confidence of one who has never been told no. His cloak is heavy velvet, lined with fur though the evening is only cool. His boots are polished, his gloves fine leather. A jewelled ring flashes on his hand as he sweeps the room with a gaze that is both curious and commanding. The chatter falters. Men who a moment before boasted of their coin now glance nervously at their mugs. The girls straighten their posture, smoothing skirts and ribbons, their smiles cautious. Even the mistress rises, a flicker of surprise passing over her usually unreadable face. For nobles do not often come here. Their pleasures are taken in private chambers, with secrecy and discretion. To appear openly in a house such as this is both bold and dangerous. He strides to the fire, unhurried as though he owns not only the hearth but the walls around it. His cloak falls across a chair, his gloves are set aside, and he takes a cup of wine without asking. He drinks deeply, lips curling into the faintest smile. "Carry on," he says at last, his voice smooth, practiced. And so the room exhales, laughter creeping back, though thinner now, watchful. The nobleman's eyes wander, not lecherously, but with curiosity, as though he studies a painting or a rare book. He watches the girls as they move, their laughter forced at first, then loosening under his gaze. He listens to the bard's songs, nodding slightly, as though appraising a performance. Finally he beckons, not loudly, not with the impatient snap of fingers some men use, but with a single tilt of his head. One of the girls, chosen without a word, steps forward. She's nervous, though she hides it well, her smile gentle, her movements graceful. She kneels beside him, pouring more wine. Their conversation is quiet, but fragments drift across the room. He asks about her life, not with idle politeness, but with real interest. She answers carefully, telling half-truths shaped into charm. When she laughs, it is soft, and when he responds, there is no crude jest, no boast of wealth, only more questions, as though he wishes to know her beyond the paint and silk. The mistress watches with hawk's eyes. A nobleman's favour can be boon or curse. One gift from his hand could feed the house for weeks, but one careless word could bring ruin, should his peers learn of his presence. Hours pass. He does not retreat to a chamber, nor demand more than company and wine. He speaks of books, of falconry, of travels to lands beyond the sea. He tells of a banquet where roasted peacock was served, its feathers reattached after cooking to dazzle the guests. The girls gasp, laughing at the extravagance. He smiles, as though pleased to amuse, and yet beneath his ease there lingers something else, loneliness perhaps, or a hunger deeper than flesh. For though his clothes are fine and his manners polished, his laughter holds a note of weariness. He speaks of the court as though it is both prison and theatre, a place where every smile hides a dagger. When at last he rises to leave, the room holds its breath. He places a purse on the table, not a coin or two, but a full purse, heavy enough to make the mistress's eyes widen. "For your company," he says simply, though his gaze rests not on the mistress but on the girl who had sat by his side. And then he is gone, his cloak sweeping the doorway, his presence fading like smoke. The house buzzes with whispers the moment the door closes. Was he truly who he seemed? Which noble family does he serve or betray? Will he return? Or was this a fleeting shadow of another world brushing against ours? The mistress says nothing, though her fingers close tight around the purse. The girl, quiet now, stares into the fire as though lost in thought. For in the nobleman's questions, perhaps she heard not just curiosity but recognition. And as the embers crackle, the house holds another secret, one wrapped in velvet and gold carried away into the night. The city always feels different on a festival night. Even before the sun dips behind the rooftops, you can sense it in the air. The hum of anticipation, the crackle of torches being lit along the streets, the scent of roasting meats drifting from every stall and corner. For those who live within the walls, it is the one time when hardship loosens its grip, if only for a few hours, and joy becomes a currency everyone can afford. The brothel too changes. The mistress knows that on festival nights, the men will come later, their purses already lightened by food, drink and wagers. But she does not mind, for such nights carry their own profit. The girls are allowed to join the throngs for a while, their faces painted, their ribbons bright, blending into the sea of colour and laughter. The streets are alive with music. Drums, pipes, fiddles, and the clashing of bells tied to dancers' ankles. Bonfires roar in the squares, sparks shooting into the night sky. Children race past, waving little torches, their laughter piercing through the noise. Vendors cry out their wares, honey cakes drizzled with nuts, roasted chestnuts steaming in paper cones, meat pies hot enough to burn your tongue. The air is thick with spice, smoke, and excitement. I walk among it, my skirts brushing against the hems of others, my ears filled with a dozen sounds at once. Every corner seems to hold a surprise, a juggler tossing knives, a bear led clumsily on a chain, a troupe of masked players acting out some foolish tale of love and betrayal. The people cheer, clap, drink and sing as though the troubles of winter or war have never touched them. And in this wild, joyful crowd, the girls of the house become almost invisible. No one points, no one whispers. We are simply part of the festival, laughing and clapping like any others. For once, our painted cheeks and jewelled hair do not mark us apart. They only make us shine brighter in the torchlight. One stall sells candied apples, the red glaze gleaming like jewels. Another offers spiced wine in steaming cups, so fragrant that even a single sip warms the body through. I taste both, letting the sugar stick to my lips, letting the wine burn pleasantly down my throat. The sweetness lingers, like a memory meant to be savoured. At the heart of the festival is the dance. A circle forms wide and wild, men and women clasping hands, spinning faster and faster as the fiddlers play. I am pulled into it before I can protest, laughter spilling from me as I stumble, then catch the rhythm. Round and round we go, skirts flying, boots stomping, voices rising in unison. For those moments, there is no brothel, no coin, no weary eyes. There is only the dance, the shared heartbeat of the crowd. But as the night deepens, the festival changes its tone. The fires burn lower, the songs turn rowdier, the wine stronger. Men stumble, laughing too loudly, some shouting, some fighting. The mistress gathers us then, her voice firm. Enough. Back now. For she knows too well that joy can tip quickly into danger. We return to the house just as the first of the drunken revellers arrive, spilling from the streets in search of more warmth, more comfort. Their purses may be lighter, but their hunger is stronger, their laughter louder. The festival has loosened them, made them eager, reckless. Inside, the rooms glow with lamplight, the table set with bread and ale. The bard strums his lute, this time in tune, trying to match the wild rhythm of the streets outside. The girls, still flushed from dancing, still sticky with sugar and wine, laugh as they welcome the guests. The festival does not end at the door. It simply changes shape, becoming more intimate, more secret. As the night stretches on, I sit by the window for a moment, watching the last sparks of the bonfires fade into the distance. The streets will be quiet again by dawn, the stalls taken down, the laughter only an echo. But for one night the city remembered how to be alive, and for one night so did we. The night had grown quieter than most. Outside, the streets were nearly empty. save for the echo of a distant cartwheel or the bark of a dog somewhere in the dark. Inside, the brothel's fire burned low, shadows flickering along the wooden beams, the air thick with the mingled scents of wax, wine, and worn velvet. It was in this hush, when laughter had faded and even the girls' voices had softened, that he came to me with a confession. He was not a man I expected such words from. A merchant, I think, though his clothes were finer than most, his boots sturdy and his purse heavy. He had visited before, always polite, always careful, never cruel or careless. But this night his eyes carried a weight, as though the wine he drank had loosened more than his tongue. It had unlocked something hidden, something raw. We sat near the hearth, the flames throwing a dull glow over his face. He stared at the embers for a long time, silent, while I waited. Sometimes, the best way to draw a man's heart is to say nothing at all, to simply let him drown in the words he is trying to swallow. At last he spoke. His voice was low, unsteady. "Do you ever regret?" I tilted my head, feigning curiosity, though I already knew the shape of the question. Men who come here rarely seek only the body. Often they seek absolution, or at least a listening ear. He spoke of his family first, of a wife whose laughter he had long since stopped hearing, of children who looked at him as though he were a stranger. He spoke of trade, of long journeys that had filled his purse but emptied his soul. "I thought I did it all for them," he murmured, his fingers tightening on his cup. "But somewhere along the road I forgot their faces. I came home a guest in my own house." His words tumbled faster now, as though the dam had broken. He confessed to loneliness, to shame, to nights spent awake with the weight of his choices pressing on his chest. He confessed to envy of men who seemed content with simpler lives, and to fear that he would leave nothing behind but debts and hollow promises. I listened, nodding gently, my hand resting lightly on his arm when his voice faltered. I did not judge nor offer solutions. That is not what men seek here. They seek to be heard, to speak aloud the thoughts they cannot voice in their gilded homes or crowded taverns, to whisper into the shadows, knowing those shadows will keep their secrets. At one point his eyes filled with tears. He laughed bitterly, ashamed, muttering that men of his standing should not cry. I pressed a cloth into his hand, whispering, "Even kings weep, though their thrones are high." It was enough to soften him, to let the tears fall freely. When he had emptied himself of confessions, he looked at me, not as an object, not as a mirror of desire, but as another soul. "Do you ever regret?" he asked again, more gently this time. I paused, then answered as truthfully as I dared. "Regret visits all of us, like a shadow at dusk. But shadows do not stay. The fire burns, the dawn comes, and even regret must fade." It was not a lie, though neither was it the whole truth. But it was the kind of answer that brings comfort, and comfort was what he needed most. He left before the others stirred, his purse lighter, but his steps steadier than when he arrived. I watched him go, his cloak drawn tight, his figure swallowed by the night. Perhaps he would return, perhaps not, but his words would linger with me, as all confessions do. For every man leaves behind a piece of himself in this house, sometimes laughter, sometimes anger, and sometimes, like tonight, the fragile weight of honesty. And as the fire burned lower, I wondered how many more confessions the night still held, waiting for the right silence to fall. There is a strange stillness that comes just before dawn. Not the deep silence of midnight, nor the noisy bustle of morning, but something in between, a pause, as if the city itself takes a breath before the sun climbs over its rooftops. That is the hour I cherish most, though it is also the hour that lays bare the truth of what we are. The fire in the hearth has burned down to a glow, no longer bright enough to chase away the shadows. The air is cool, carrying the faintest scent of smoke from the night's candles. The laughter has faded, the footsteps of the last guests already echoing down the street. What remains is only us, the girls, the mistress, the house itself, settling into the quiet after the storm. I walk through the rooms, skirts brushing the floor, eyes catching on the remnants of the night. A cup left half full of wine, a ribbon torn loose in haste, a coin dropped and forgotten beneath a chair. Each tells a story, though none will be remembered by those who left them. Only we remain, keepers of the fragments, the guardians of memory that fades with the morning light. The mistress sits at her table, purse open before her, counting slowly, carefully. Her lips move in silence, her fingers swift, her eyes sharp. Profit is her prayer, coin her scripture. She looks up once as I pass, her expression unreadable, then bends again to her task. For her, the dawn is a ledger, the night's passion measured in silver and gold. The other girls drift like shadows, some weary, their faces washed of paint, hair unpinned, laughter gone. Others hum softly to themselves, trying to carry a fragment of joy into sleep. One curls up by the hearth, too tired to climb the stairs. Another kneels by her bed, whispering a prayer not to saints or angels, but to the dawn itself, asking only for strength to rise again when evening falls. And I sit by the window, watching as the first grey light seeps into the alley. The city stirs faintly, the creak of a cart, the bark of a dog, the sweep of a broom across cobblestones. Bakers begin their work, the smell of bread drifting faintly on the cool air. Life renews itself, indifferent to what the night has held. There is peace in that indifference. No matter how wild the night, how heavy the secrets whispered in my ear, how bright or bitter the laughter, the dawn comes, steady and unchanging. It washes everything in pale gold, softening edges, erasing sins. I think of the nobleman, his velvet cloak and searching eyes. I think of the merchant, his tears catching firelight as he confessed. I think of the soldiers, the farmers, the nameless men who came and went, each leaving behind a trace of themselves in this house. And I wonder, do they ever think of us when they wake in their beds, when the dawn spills across their faces? Or are we only shadows in their memory, fading with the night? Perhaps it does not matter. We are part of their stories, whether they remember or not, and they are part of ours. The sun edges higher now, gilding the rooftops, painting the sky with streaks of rose and gold. The city awakens fully, voices rising, doors opening, wheels turning on cobblestones. The mistress closes her purse with a sharp snap, satisfied. The girls slip away to their rooms one by one, their whispers trailing like smoke. I remain at the window a little longer, watching the light grow stronger, chasing away the last of the night. And in that moment, I feel both small and infinite, a single soul in a world that forgets easily, yet also part of something timeless, something that has always been and will always be. The dawn after is not an ending, it is simply a beginning in disguise. Another night will come, another round of laughter, tears, secrets and songs. But for now, there is quiet. For now, there is light. And as the sun fully rises, I close my eyes, letting the warmth touch my face. May it carry me into sleep, into dreams gentler than the world I will wake to once again. May these memories guide you into peaceful dreams. If you drifted off somewhere along the way, let me know below. Sweet dreams. Until next time, whispers softly good night.